Race day at the Nürburgring. Jenson Button arrives, swapping the ITV mic for the VAR steering wheel. He is back where he belongs, but don't expect too much. Kimi Raikkonen's up front and in shape for a third successive victory in the super-fast McLaren Mercedes. But the German Nick Heidfeld, quiet and very quick. He's on pole for the first time in the BMW Williams. It's one of the hottest weekends we've ever experienced at the Nürburgring for the European Grand Prix, race 7 in F1 2005.
Hello there, welcome to the paddock. In the past, Michael Schumacher has been the Euro star. He's won the Grand Prix a record 5 times. But despite Liverpool's exploits in Istanbul, you'd be very brave to back a red Ferrari revival this afternoon. Mark is with me. But Mark, having said that, everybody down to Michael Schumacher in 10th place. They have a genuine chance of a victory today.
I think they do have a genuine chance, but I think the play today, Jim, will be BMW Williams, Toyota into the pits early. Maybe Nick Heidfeld free stop. Big rumour going about that at the moment. Raikkonen out in front and Alonso chasing him hard.
Yeah, you're a wise judge. You've been scurrying up and down the paddock here. Who do you really fancy this afternoon?
I think it's got to be Kimi. Kimi's on a roll. I think he's going to go out in front and control the race, and I think he really will dominate this one.
OK, Kimi off pole for the first time in 4 races. Well, as we told you in Monaco, the qualifying system has changed here this weekend. We're down to 1 session on a Saturday. Mercifully, Sunday's qualifying 2 has gone. Here's Martin Brundle and James Allen to bring you right up to date. We have a lap of the Nürburgring with the pole sitter and also the complete grid for the European Grand Prix.
So here we go then for our first crack at the new style qualifying. Remember, they've got to carry the fuel into this session, which they'll use for the start of the race. That's going to be interesting, Martin, because we haven't seen them all going low fuel, so we don't know how outright quick everybody is relative to each other. But it seems that strategy-wise here at the Nürburgring, there are 2 different ways of playing it.
Yes, you can do a long first stint or a short one. We could see a very wide range of pit stop windows for that first stop this afternoon, and what they've had to take into qualifying with them could be as early as lap 16 or as late as lap 26 and 27. And what about the tyres? Remember, in this Grand Prix last year, they used 4 sets of tyres. It was a 3-stopper during Grand Prix, and they've got to just have 1 set for this afternoon. So they had to drag quite a hard compound around through that qualifying session.
Yeah, some standout performances as well. Williams still looking very, very good in qualifying trim, but what about Michael Schumacher and Ferrari? The grip still isn't there on the single lap, even this far into the season. When are they going to find it?
Well, you do worry they'll never get it together, but they need a strong race today, don't they? Otherwise, there's the grave concern. If they don't perform here, then I think they'll not perform anywhere.
Jenson Button was the second car out on track after teammate Takuma Sato. The track was dirty, giving very little grip. After 5 weeks on the sidelines, Jenson came back to record P13 on the grid. David Coulthard, Red Bull Racing, not really happening here this weekend at the Nürburgring. Can't really find the speed. He ends up 12th on the grid. Jarno Trulli out in the Toyota, very close to their factory in Cologne. Many of their employees here. Trulli really pushed the car hard, managed to get himself up into the 4th place, and Toyota fighting for a podium. Rubens Barrichello came here still arguing with his teammate and argued with the car into turn 1. Lost a little time, but nevertheless lines up in front of Michael Schumacher, 8th on the grid. The world champion didn't really look on form all day. A lot of people in the paddock suspected he was carrying more fuel than his teammate, but then again the juggle drums are that he isn't. This was just a very poor lap from the world champion. Is he going to have Imola time of pace in the race, or is he just going to be slow? No. Alonso out of the final corner. He needed something special to get himself on terms with Raikkonen here. The McLaren is the faster car. He didn't get it. He's 6th on the grid, and he's got quite a few cars between himself and Raikkonen. Last 3 races he's driven defensively. Here he's going to have to attack. We've seen Williams looking very strong in qualifying. Mark Webber was 3rd on the grid in Monaco, and he's 3rd on the grid here as well. Another committed point-to-point lap from the Australian, very neat and tidy. Nevertheless, the feeling is that, like Monaco, they've gone a little bit lighter on the fuel than the opposition around them. We will see. The next car out on track was Webber's teammate Nick Heidfeld, on home soil on a track where he learned to drive back at the age of 8. He was excellent. The feeling again is that he's carrying perhaps slightly less fuel than his teammate, but nevertheless, this was a fantastic lap from the German, who's currently the best German in the World Championship rankings. Would it be good enough for pole? Certainly everyone at BMW was hoping so, and in fact it would be. It was clear from the outset that Raikkonen was carrying more fuel than Heidfeld. He's thinking about the championship, thinking about the race win this afternoon and the long game. He's 2nd on the grid, and he wants to take a big bite out of Alonso's championship lead.
The car felt reasonably good, but I'm sure we can get it back from there. We just had so much understeer in the car. I was fighting it through the corners, but it's all right.
We are confident. We did our simulations, and we saw that it's better to do what we did now in qualifying.
In here, usually the inside line is not so good on the start, so we need to see what happens. But with this new qualifying system, you don't really know how much fuel they have and what they're doing, so we really need to wait and see until the race.
The first pole position ever is outstanding, but here at my home Grand Prix. Last week I was 2nd in Monaco. At the moment it can't get a lot better.
The Grand Prix of Europe at the Nürburgring in Germany, 5.15 kilometres, 3.2 miles, it's 60 laps, 15 corners in all. Let's take a look at them on board with pole sitter Nick Heidfeld in the BMW Williams. Up to 6th gear and 185 miles an hour down towards the very wide entry to turn 1. Been a lot of overtaking in there this afternoon. And then it's tight when you get then drops quite heavily away. And a strange style from Heidfeld. He changes gear right into the heart of the corner. We'll watch that as the lap unfolds. Into turn 3 already. Pick up the white line on the inside and just hug it. And then you can run very wide in turn 4. All the drivers do that. Almost illegal, really. You should at least keep 2 wheels inside the white lines defining the racetrack. The Ford chicane, 105 miles an hour, down for the second part to 70. Great grip there, plenty of camber to help you lean on the curb to arrest the slide. Brilliant acceleration, the Dunlop hairpin. Still downshifting right into the apex of the corner. Now uphill through turns 8 and 9. Listen to this. Not a hint of lift on the throttle. Bring it to the right-hand side for the bumpy braking zone of 10. Get it in nice and early. Don't run too high. You've got to flick immediately to the left for 11. And the car working very well. Good direction change and stability. Now, good acceleration one more time. Putting up to 185 miles an hour to the uphill braking zone for the NGK chicane. Just cheat the curbs and just straighten it as much as you can to get best acceleration up to 140 miles an hour before the Coca-Cola curve down to 70. Be patient on the way in. Now straighten the car up, run as wide as you can get away with. The line coming up. First pole position for Nick Heidfeld.
Nick Heidfeld, currently the #1 German driver in Formula 1, takes his first career pole position in the BMW Williams. Kimi Raikkonen, surely he's carrying a lot of fuel there, but still on the front row. Mark Webber is solid in 3rd position. Jarno Trulli again out-qualifies his teammate. Montoya, his best position this season. Alonso still thinking about that World Championship. Rubens Barrichello out-qualifies Michael Schumacher, but that's Rubens' best slot. Ralf Schumacher in 8th. Fisichella half a second away from Alonso. Michael Schumacher still struggling with those Bridgestone tyres. Massa in 11th slot there with the Sauber. David Coulthard is 2.5 seconds away from pole position. Big disappointment for Jenson Button, his worst qualifying position all season long. Lutzi lines up 14th. Jacques Villeneuve again outside of the top 10. Sato's 3 tenths behind Button for the BAR Honda. Montero 17th. Friesecker out qualifies Carter Kane in 19th, and Albers rounds up the grid.
Mark, I just want to pick you up on something that Martin said in that. If the Ferraris, and Michael Schumacher in particular, don't perform here, they won't perform anywhere. Would you go along with that?
I think they will perform, but I think it's going to be a long time before we actually see it. Bridgestone are well behind the 8 ball. They've got to catch up to Mitchell in terms of tyre technology, and it will take its time.
It's amazing when you look back to last year's a doddle for Ferrari, a 1-2 here with Michael Schumacher and Rubens Barrichello. They won by a country mile, and everybody just asked me what has happened to Schumi and Ferrari.
Well, I tell you, it's not just Schumi and Ferrari, it's the tyre element which is causing all the problems for them. They don't have a tyre which is producing the grip. It's not working in conjunction with their car. You've got a driver here who's got problems with his teammate, problems with his brother. You know, this guy hasn't won a race for a long, long time, and this is the biggest spell he's ever had since 1993 not to win a Grand Prix.
So Nick Heidfelder is the top German here, and he showed real skills through the streets of Monte Carlo, blew Alonso away.
He did indeed. I've looked at this, and I think it's just a textbook overtaking manoeuvre. He comes into the chicane, cleanly goes underneath Alonso, just backs off the throttle pedal. That then allows Alonso not to get back on his throttle pedal and make another move on him. It really is a great style, great confidence, and this guy is on a rock and roll start situation now. He really has got the BMW Williams with him.
And Nick Heidfeld absolutely loves this place. He learned to ride a bike around here, is sledging down the old Nordschleife and all that. Let's move on to Fernando Alonso. Will he attack or will he drive defensively and just accrue a few more points?
No, he has to attack. He cannot afford now to have the erosion on his World Championship lead. He must make sure that he keeps the pressure on. If Raikkonen's out in front, which we clearly believe he will be, Alonso has to keep pressure.
But you reckon the Iceman's hot streak will continue?
I think the guy will come off the line, will control this race, and will be off in the distance.
Thank you very much, Mark. Well, those BARs are back racing again after serving a 2-race ban for running an underweight and illegal car at Imola. As we've heard, going early in qualifying really has compromised their weekend, and there are more worries as well about the Honda engine. It has hardly been touched since that ban was imposed.
BAR make their race return today, not with a bang, but with a nagging worry over reliability. The team are concerned about possible oxidization and corrosion within the Honda power plant. How hard can they push it?
This engine's been sitting around for 5 weeks, and that does make a big difference for a Formula 1 engine. I'm sure that no other team's ever tried that before. But I think that we're going to be strong in the race, and we're going to get some good points.
Unfortunately, an engine was sleeping in 5 weeks. We haven't experienced this situation, so we're a bit concerned about the reliability. But so far, there's no sign of anything wrong, so looking okay.
The team were banned after Imola for misinterpreting F1's rules on minimum car weight, and there's been some meticulous weighing of the car this weekend.
All we're doing at the moment is making sure that when the car is run completely dry of fuel, it will weigh 600 kilos. Before we were carrying 6 kilograms of fuel, which we needed to make sure the car could run. So that's an interpretation of the rules that the FIA have now made clear.
But will the 6 kilos of extra ballast carried in the floor slow the car down?
Yes, it will, because extra weight always costs you a little bit, but we're probably talking about maybe a tenth of a second or something, so not much.
Did anyone offer to resign over this? It's not really that sort of issue. The team had a big problem. It was working on developing the car, and the team really has a culture of solving problems. It's not a blame culture. Clearly we put ourselves in the wrong position, and we just had to sort ourselves out and get back, keep competitive, keep focused, and find the solution.
Well, BAR are back at the racetrack, but you're not really back with a bang, are you, Gilles? Jensen was predicting a win here a couple of weeks ago. It's not looking very likely now.
Well, I think we underestimated the change in the racetrack that we had yesterday. Unfortunately, we were hoping for probably a half a second to a 1 second deficit, being first and second out of line. But unfortunately, it was a little bit more than what we were hoping for.
Now, these engines have been sitting on the shelf for a couple of weeks. Just how worried are you about them lasting the distance?
Well, the issue is we're going into an unknown area. You know, the engines were not designed to be used that way. We think it's going to be okay, but it still is a little bit of an unknown.
Is there anything you can do to manage the situation, or is it just a matter of keeping your fingers crossed?
I think we did already everything we could do. We spent the whole of Friday and part of Saturday being quite conservative on how we use the engines, and you know, bearing the situation in mind. But you know, we think we're going to be okay. I think we had a good plan going through the weekend, and we're hoping for a good result. It's still from here.
We hope so too. Thanks, Gilles.
Thank you.
Any points would be a bonus for BAR here. We are effectively a third of the way through the season. Alonso's eyeing that podium again. 22 points clear of Raikkonen, a comfortable winner in Barcelona and Monte Carlo. Trulli, now he has huge support from the Toyota staff based close by in Cologne. Webber, fresh from his first podium, just ahead of the pole sitter Heidfeld. 2003 winner Ralf Schumacher, Fisichella, Montoya, Michael Schumacher and Coulthard. In the constructors, McLaren are the team very much on the move, and we have a revealing interview with team boss Ron Dennis coming up. BMW Williams, they've closed in on Toyota after scoring big in Monaco. Ferrari, just 21, and what a massive decline when you remember they passed the 100 mark here last year. BAR have yet to score. And they've changed their tune a bit here, haven't they, BAR? A bit more humble at the moment because they came here saying what they were going to do to everybody.
Well, they've been really racy in the media of the last couple of weeks. They've all said they were going to come back here with a vengeance and put something together, and that car was capable of winning. But as I see it now, and as you can clearly see it, that's not the case.
If you stop in Formula One, you go backwards very, very quickly, don't you?
You do go backwards, Jim. The progress down this pit lane is incredible, and you've only got to look at even Ferrari with the Bridgestone tyre problem. They're on their back foot, and they still can't catch up.
And from Jenson Button's point of view, his worst grid slot of the season, he'll be looking to make up ground very quickly.
You know, this guy was on the podium every time you looked around last year. They were second in the Constructors' title. All of a sudden, it's all gone pear-shaped, and we do want to see him back there.
Quick word from you about the engine. Will that go pear-shaped? We've seen them blow in the past.
I hope it won't. I think it'll be fine.
Let's have a word with a man whose engines have been really good this season. It is the Renault boss, Flavio Briatore, there at Renault, talking to Lou.
Well, Flavio, you're still leading the championship, but Kimi and McLaren coming up fast on you, aren't they? Have they got you worried?
Oh, sure, it's very, very hard beating McLaren here, you know. Raikkonen was very quick, but, you know, we see. Monte Carlo, we have a problem. Here, really, we don't have a problem. We are not quick enough in qualify, but let's see how much fuel have McLaren, let's see how much fuel we have, and I'm sure it's a very good race.
You were winning everything at the beginning of the year. Have you gone off the boil a bit, or is it the others just catching you up?
We're doing something for the sport. I think so. We need increasing the television viewer, and this we're doing only for the sport. Not the one to race after we start winning again.
That's very kind of you, Flavio. Thanks.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, the show is everything for Flavio, and Renault have put on a great show so far for us this season. It's been easy, the best week of the season, a troubled season as well for BMW Williams. Career best second place for Nick Heidfeld on the podium in Monte Carlo, and on the podium for the first time was the Aussie Mark Webber, and both are up top and in shape for a big score today.
And there's Nick Heidfeld in second place, his best ever Formula One result. And Mark Webber too, his first ever podium in Formula One.
Williams' success in Monaco has continued here in Germany, with pole position for the young driver staking a major claim to be the Nürburgring's next local hero.
What a great lap from Heidfeld.
You're going to be lying in bed tonight dreaming about that first win?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I try to keep my calm. I hope I can sleep well, but it shouldn't be a problem.
Mark Webber really absolutely on it.
Never underestimate Williams, of course, you know, and people sit there and, you know, we did have a tough start, and people sort of say, well, where do they come from? You know, we work very, very hard.
And both Webber and Heidfeld are in agreement about who's going to be making them work even harder today.
Quite clearly it's going to be Kimi. I mean, they have dominated the last couple of races, and definitely they will be very strong.
Kimi looks very strong. Yeah, Kimi looks very strong. So, but we want to close the gap to Toyota in the points, and both cars up the front, and just try and keep chipping into that gap with the other red team.
Starts have been Williams' weakness this season, never more so than for Webber in Monaco. It's a problem the team believes it's solved. We'll find out later today if they're right.
Definitely we have to improve our starts. My start in Monaco wasn't too bad, but I still was weaker than some people around me.
They've got to come through us to get to that podium, and whether that happens with strategy or on track or off the bloody start, we'll see, but who knows.
Well, just in the back of the Williams garage here, nervous mechanics. And Sam, everything okay so far?
No problem. No, we're ready to go.
So what about those starts? Is there not a little thought in the back of your mind that things might not go so well?
I think it's the same for everybody, really. I mean, everyone can have good or bad starts. We haven't had a good run for the last couple of races, but we've put a lot of effort into trying to fix that. It is a long drag down to the first corner, so there's every chance that anything could happen, but we'll do the best we can.
Podium possible?
Anything is always possible, so we'll just try and score as high as we can and be there at the end.
Have a good race.
Pleased to tell you that Sam Michael has promised to join us live from the pit wall during the race. What do you make of those starts? I mean, from where I'm standing, it'll be tough for Williams to sort things out in the brief time between Monaco and here.
Well, you would think so, but actually there's several hundred people back at the Williams base. They've already had the test team out. They've had a guy doing 50, 60 starts, practicing day in, day out, to make sure that the problem that we saw in Monte Carlo doesn't happen again. And that really is going to be playing on Nick Heidfeld's mind, I can assure you.
Is there added stress for Heidfeld on pole?
Of course there is, yeah. I mean, it's the home country and a home Grand Prix for him. Big pressure. He's on pole for the first time, and he knows underneath him is a car which possibly will not start that cleanly.
Yeah, it's an absolutely crucial phase, the start here. 180 mile an hour to the first corner. We had a lot of incidents at that first corner, and Williams won't like us reminding them what happened last year. Montoya took out teammate Ralf Schumacher.
Well, he did indeed, and this is a classic turn one situation here. They are up to about 185, and they've got off cameras to come in. Watch what goes on here. Montoya then gets pear-shaped on his brakes and starts to slide into his teammate, and it's just a big kerfuffle when it comes into the first corner. We've seen it time and time again, Jim, here, and it could well happen again today.
You think so?
I think it's quite possible. I think there's a few people on there. I think the testosterone levels are a little bit high, and it could all go off.
OK, here we are then at the Nürburgring, right in the heart of Michael Schumacher country. But Germany's #1 sporting hero is very much on the back foot. You know, it's 7 races since we've seen his famous winning star jump. So how Schumi's army reacting to life in the slow lane?
Not the kind of headlines Michael expected this season, and they haven't been much kinder at home. If Michael Schumacher's racing life is a journey, he's currently being delayed. Over the last 6 races, the world champion has only visited the podium once. And now stories run around the F1 media that Michael's previous blue sky relationship with the Scuderia has hit a patch of turbulence.
You know, you make up all these stories, quite frankly. We're pretty relaxed and calm, as we have been through much tougher times.
This air of irritation did not exist 12 months ago. The prancing horse was a picture of good health. The Schumi smile, a permanent accessory, thanks to 5 wins from 6 races by the time of Nürburgring 2004. Then Michael went on to win another 7 on the trot.
Ferrari's current run of form has hit the sport itself here in Schumacher's heartland. The Germans love a winner, and winners mean TV ratings.
To be honest, it's a little bit less. Last year it was more because Michael was so successful. On the other hand, it's still very, very high compared to other programs, so we are still happy with it. It's just that it was unusual high last year.
So a combination of spaces in the fan club grandstand and several million less TV viewers points to a change in what Formula One means in Germany. This season, more success has come from Ralf Schumacher and today's pole sitter Nick Heidfeld. Michael's not used to being his country's lowest qualifying F1 driver. Is this a retreat of the red tide?
Now you have 2 other stars like Kimi and Fernando, which do a very good job, and they create their group of fans. So in this respect, you can't always win. I knew that before. I know it. I see it now, and that's the way it goes. But I, anyway, do enjoy it.
Well, Nicky, you were 2 times a Ferrari world champion. What is the pressure like within that team to win?
The pressure in the old days when Enzo Ferrari was alive was a little higher, I think, than today. But nevertheless, they want to be successful, and if you want to be successful, there is pressure, especially in Italy, where the whole country is behind these 2 cars, and the Italians always want to see it winning. So the pressure is building up.
And you know the German audience. Do they still have the same support for Michael that they always did?
If Michael is winning, they are certainly behind him. If Michael is losing, they drop him. This is basically what is always the same, not in only Germany, in all over the world.
And what about you coming back to the Nürburgring? Mixed memories for you?
Not really, because my accident is a long time ago, and I certainly survived properly. I'm still alive, everything is working well, so I have no problems.
Thanks, Nicky.
This crash here in 1976 on the legendary Nordschleife track, and it finished that particular circuit right next door, of course, as a Formula One venue. Boris Becker is joining us, regular visitor to the paddock, and Boris, gearing up for his commentating duties at Wimbledon in the not too distant future. These really, though, are harrowing times for Jordan. They had one of their best racing weekends here back in 1999. Heinz-Harald Frentzen stuck the car on pole and led for a lot of the European Grand Prix, but those days seem a long way away now. In my view, Jordan are in need really of some tender, loving care. Let's join sporting director Trevor Carlin with Ted Kravitz.
Well, indeed, Jim. And Trevor, you've had a bit of a weekend, haven't you? In trouble with the FIA, the car's spinning off all over the place, in amongst the Minardis. Are you wondering what you've let yourself in for?
Well, yeah, it's been tough, but, you know, I've been doing motor racing now for quite a long time, and the situation's the same. It's just bigger problems in front of a lot more people.
And what do you make of all these rumours that the team is going to be sold and Eddie Irvine even is going to come in?
They're not true. The team isn't for sale. I think there's a bit of mischief going on by some people out there just trying to destabilise us.
OK, we all want to see a strong Jordan, so have a good race, Trevor.
Thanks very much.
OK, what do you make of Jordan? I mean, they really do seem to be in a bit of a state at the moment.
I think they're in a lot of problems, and there seems to be a lot of rumours kicking about, as Trevor Carlin mentioned, that the team's up for sale. That destabilises everybody there. But at the end of the day, the on-track performance is lacking, and it's only getting worse at this moment in time.
It's so easy in this sport, as in the other sport as well, to go backwards. It's tough to make progress.
It is indeed. I mean, these guys are at the back of the grid. They don't have the resources to start going forward, and they're in a little bit of a downward spiral. As soon as they bottom out, whenever that will be, then we'll see some progress made. OK,
thank you very much indeed. Let us join Louise. She is with Jenson Button.
Jenson, I bet you're missing Martin and James in that air-conditioned commentary box, aren't you?
Not really, no. This is definitely where I want to be.
I thought you might say that. Tell us about this first corner. We've seen numerous incidents down there over the years. Does that get your attention at the start?
It does, but I mean, the problem is you can't go in too safe. Because as soon as you go in too safe, that's when accidents start. So, you know, you have to push as hard as you can, and you've obviously got to be very careful in the way that looking for a space, but you've always got to be on it.
Now, I know you would love a win today, but you're starting a little way back on the grid. Realistically, what would be a good result for you?
We need to score some points. It's not so much for to have some points on the board. It's more so that we have a good slot for qualifying in Montreal. So that's the reason.
Just over 15 minutes away from the start of the European Grand Prix. Let us go down to that melee on the grid and talk to the Aussie Mark Webber, third on the grid in the Williams.
Ready?
Which is right over your grid slot earlier on. What do you think?
Well, that's the card we've been dealt. I think, OK, you'd prefer not to be there, but that's how it is. The cars are quite sensitive to white lines and things, so we'll try and do the best we can, get away. Both Nick and I are in good shape here, so we just want to try and get through the first corner.
What would you be happy with, apart from the win? What would you be happy with at the end of this race?
I think, a podium. McLaren clearly still seem on race pace quite strong, so we've seemed to have closed the gap to Toyota and Renault from the start of the year, so we'll see how Renault go. They're going to be strong, you can never discount them, but we're going to build on Monaco result.
And your rear tyre wear okay?
Yep.
Thanks, Mark.
It's good to see him up there, Fernando Alonso, making his way down to the grid as well. And we all guess at this stage, don't we, Mark Blundell, about the amount of fuel on board, and there's a feeling that Mark Webber might have plenty.
I'm not too sure about that, Jim. I think he's not got enough to worry any of those guys who are contending for the championship, like Alonso here and like Kimi Raikkonen. But the other factor for me is Montoya. I think Montoya now has got race pace, which is actually going to take some points away from Alonso in terms of the World Championship, and that's got to be factoring into what Renault are thinking about at this point.
Montoya fifth on the grid, Fernando Alonso and Renault's sixth. Michael Schumacher, well, is that the reigning champion and his successor? Michael Schumacher chatting to Fernando Alonso, leads the championship by 22 points. Do you think that Fernando is the man for 2005, or have you got a sneaking eye on Kimi Raikkonen?
Well, I'm going to keep an eye on Kimi Raikkonen because you can't take your eye off the guy, but I think Alonso's got a maturity about him this season, and he's got something underneath him, as the Renault car has shown, to win the championship. Rubens
Barrichello has out-qualified Michael Schumacher, and I believe he has been talking to Louise Goodman.
Oh, Rubens, what kind of race shape do you think you're in?
Well, it's difficult to know. I mean, the weather has changed a little bit. It's a little cooler than the Friday and Saturday. We have great tires for the race. Our hope is that the others might struggle a little bit towards the end of the race. having said that, it's all open. I have to cut clear the first corner and gain a couple positions.
Are you expecting to see quite a wide variety amongst the strategies that the teams are running here today?
Yes. I don't, even though I think Williams has done a fantastic job so far this weekend, I don't think they are faster than the McLarens. So it will be overtaking. We saw on GP2 lots of overtaking. I think this race might be interesting.
Rubens turned 33 last week. It's been a pretty miserable season for him, has it, after the opener in Australia?
I think it's been a tough situation for him because he's had a few reliability issues. He's also just had this run-in now with Michael Schumacher, his teammate. So there's got to be a little bit of friction there in the team. And Rubens would dearly love to get on the podium and just be, strong for the remainder of this season.
Okay, Fernando Alonso, 22 points ahead in the championship, loving every moment. He always looks so cool right before a race. Here he is live with Lou.
Fernando, it's been a couple of races without a win now. It's going to be quite a tough call from 6th on the grid, isn't it?
Yeah, more difficult starting from here. But we only did 2 races without the victory and seems a very long time. But we will try again today. But at least a podium, I think we deserve this weekend.
Well, Kimi's the man who's been up on the top step of the podium for the last couple of races. Do you think he's going to be the man to beat today?
Yeah, I think Kimi has 80% of the race at the moment in the hand, and we need to do a perfect race if we want to beat him, or even problems for him in the race. If not, it will be extremely difficult today.
You had all sorts of problems with your tyres at the last race. Are you quite confident that's not going to be an issue today?
Yeah, it's perfectly okay. I think we have also a harder tyre compared to our big opponents, so maybe we can have even an advantage this race in this side.
Have a good one.
Yeah, those tyres wore away, didn't they? Monte Carlo gave us an absolutely thrilling climax. A bit of compensation, I suppose, for Alonso. Both McLarens blew out here last year. What about this fellow, Nick Heidfeld? Apparently his whole family are here. What a week he has had. And there will be massive expectation. 100,000 Germans probably looking more towards him than Michael Schumacher.
He is the #1 German driver as we currently speak now. But I think Nick Heidfeld's in a little bit of unknown territory. He hasn't sat in pole position of a Grand Prix. He hasn't led that pack round, so there's going to be some pressure building up on his shoulders. But he has got a car underneath him which is quite capable of leading the Grand Prix, but I'm not so sure it's going to be there come the end of it.
He'll be pleased to be there because not so long ago Raikkonen was preferred to him, wasn't he, by McLaren. That hurt him deeply.
Yeah, Nick Heidfeld went for a little bit of a struggle in the early years because he was getting compared to a couple of very strong contenders next to him, but I think he's really come about now and proved himself, and for me at the moment he is probably the #1 guy inside Williams BMW.
Jenson Button, we loved him in the ITV commentary box. Happier to see him there, and Webber as well. But a word about Jenson and his prospects for people just joining us, perhaps, Mark.
Well, I think Jenson Button needs to put in a strong performance and put some points in the bag. He's got nothing on the table as we speak, but BAR Honda have come in and they are definitely 5 weeks out of tune.
Fisichella, 9th on the grid, is with Ted.
Well, Giancarlo, just looking at you, you look strong, you look confident. Up for this one, yeah?
I feel confident. I think we have a good strategy, and the pace yesterday and on Friday was good. Looking forward. Even last year I did a fantastic race with Sauber. I started from the back of the grid and I finished on 6th. So I expect to be quick today, and the target is to get on the podium.
Have a good race, Giancarlo. Thank you.
He is targeting the podium. Nick Heidfeld is the pole sitter. Briefly, Mark, you're not veering away from Raikkonen.
No, Kimi Raikkonen is going to be the guy today, and I think he's just going to continue his winning ways.
Well, we have the Brits, David Coulthard and Jenson Button, both starting outside the top 10. Scoring is their prime target. Michael Schumacher, 4 times the ringmaster, only just ahead of them. Can he really conjure something special out of the red Ferrari from there? Fernando Alonso, runaway championship leader. He is on the 3rd row. Very confident. He's told us he's aiming for the podium. Montoya next door on the clean side of the grid. Then Trulli, backed by Toyota's Cologne workforce. Webber desperate for a decent getaway. Raikkonen in brilliant form alongside the pole sitter Nick Heidfeld. Another quiet man, happier, letting his driving do the talking. The European Grand Prix is next. ITV Sport presents the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. The temperature has gone through the roof this weekend in Western Germany. It has dropped to a very pleasant 24 degrees. And just to underline the competitive nature of F1 2005, the top 10 down to Michael Schumacher all fancy their chances. Be warned, things happen at the first corner. Let's join Martin Brundle and say good afternoon to James Allen.
Thank you, everybody. That's what it looks like to stare at the steering wheel of a modern Formula One car. Jarno Trulli's got a lot of dials to press there. There's Juan Montoya just taking it all in. This weekend he's been pretty close to his teammate Kimi Räikkönen throughout free practice, but shaded by him in qualifying yesterday. And we've got a German on pole position in Germany. He's their highest points scorer so far this season, but he's also the one you tend to forget about, Nick Heidfeld. He had to fight his way into the Williams team in the first place, beating test driver Antonio Pizzonia to get the seat at the start of the season. But he's quietly outperformed expectations, quietly outperformed Mark Webber on a few occasions this year. And yesterday, he very quietly put himself on pole position for the first time in 6 seasons of Formula One racing. He starts today alongside a former teammate, Kimi Räikkönen, who he matched for performance back at Sauber in 2001, but then he had to sit and watch as McLaren Mercedes swooped in, took Kimi on a big money deal and didn't take him. And he's been fuming about it, really, ever since. Well, today, possibly the chance for the nearly man to put that situation right. There's a man with a lot to think about, Fernando Alonso. He starts the Grand Prix today from 6th place on the grid. And the worst news for him is that Kimi Räikkönen, as I say, on the front row, and between them, some cars that could certainly mess up Alonso's chances today. Montoya, Trulli, Webber, and obviously Heidfeld at the front as well, expected to drop behind Räikkönen as the race goes on. Alonso, Martin, has been, well, he's elevated defensive driving to something of an art form in the last 3 Grand Prix, but today he simply has to attack, otherwise Kimi is going to take a massive chunk out of that 22-point lead he has in the World Championship.
Yes, I'm sure he's fueled quite heavily for a long run into the race, and wandering around on the grid, it is everybody's talking about the same thing. Strategy, when are they all going to stop? Wide, a big difference in how they're going about their Grand Prix racing this weekend. To a certain extent driven by the fact there's just been the one qualifying session. But Sam Michael said to me at Williams, they're not really racing Räikkönen today. I think everybody expects Räikkönen to have the upper hand here, but how will his tyres wear through the race? They seem to have been fine in others, but Alonso's got a lot of problems today. He must minimise the damage, and I think that's the strategy they've gone for as he sits there. Our 2 Brits down in 12th and 13th. Coulthard with a solid run, Button too, but no raw pace in the Red Bull car or the BAR Honda there. So a disappointing return for BAR, but again we'll have to wait and see how far Jensen gets into the race before he needs to stop for fuel. But Alonso then, he's somehow got to get past Jarno Trulli, hasn't he, early on in the Grand Prix. He cannot afford to let Räikkönen get too far into the distance. But at the same time, he is much more in a pack, and the chance of tripping over somebody down in turn 1 or just being run into the back of are very, very high here. And the widest Renault in the world that he's been driving this last couple of Grand Prix will be no good to him here whatsoever, because turn 1 is such a wide entry, you'll be able to drive either side of him if he has tyre problems later on.
So how does this guy feel right now? On pole for the first time in his Formula One career. Certainly not a stranger to it back in his Formula 3 days. I saw him stick the car on pole position for the prestigious Macau Grand Prix back in the mid-1990s. Won the first heat there. So he's back where he feels he belongs at the front. It's been a long time coming, as it is for all Grand Prix drivers. They win everything in the junior Formula, then disappear into the midfield of Formula One for sometimes forever, sometimes just for a few years before they spring up again at the front of the grid. So a special moment in front of his family and home crowd for Nick Heidfeld. Once again then, the competitiveness of Formula One 2005 continues to impress us all. We've got 5 teams, as Jim said, 10 drivers all contesting the podium here this afternoon. Looks like Jarno Trulli has a problem there in 4th place on the grid.
And where they're just clearing the grid with 12 seconds to go. They have to be gone within 15 seconds. That was touch and go. They've dropped his car down. He's now on the road. He was in the air for most of that. I think they were a couple of seconds out of the regulations there. We'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, we'll get a message from the race control about it. It seemed pretty close to 15 seconds before that green light went on, you'd have to say. Well, we haven't talked much about Ferrari in the build-up. But you can certainly count them in, I think, to the battle for the podium finishes today. Michael Schumacher maybe 10th on the grid, Rubens Barrichello 7th. But Bridgestone boss Hisao Suganuma promised me earlier this morning that they would have Imola levels of pace during the race. And if you remember Imola, if you were watching it with us here on F1 ITV, you remember in the middle part of that Grand Prix, Schumacher was 2 seconds a lap faster than anybody else on the racetrack. That's what Bridgestone are promising here today for the race. And if Michael Schumacher can use the strategy, use the possibility of overtaking at this track, which certainly wasn't there at Monaco a week ago, but this place has a couple of spots where you can overtake, particularly in the closing stages of the Grand Prix. Other people's tyres start to fade. The final corner onto the main straight, a critical point to get close to anybody who's got high tyre wear. Just dive down the inside of them into turn 1. And one or two drivers have been saying to us they expect quite a bit of overtaking in the closing stages of this Grand Prix. I certainly do as well.
The reason why it's so difficult down into turn 1, obviously no warm-up this morning. They're conserving fuel on this lap going to the actual start, the parade lap, as it were. And turn 1 has got a slight right kink all the way into the heart of the apex. And you just load up, you unload the inside right front, load up the outside left front. And then we're watching them just taking the blankets. They're very late and I think they'll be penalised for that. I think there's a high chance that Jarno Trulli will be penalised. That is touch and go, isn't it? But it's only a second or two, but rules are rules.
Well, it would be a shame for Jarno if he does receive a penalty for that, because he said yesterday after qualifying, that's one of the best laps I've ever done in qualifying. Obviously, he knows how much fuel he's got in the car. Everyone else is suggesting that Toyota's quite light, but he says it was an utterly stunning lap and quite a surprise to him that he was as far up the grid as he was. It was just absolutely hooked up. So we'll keep an eye on that situation. Well, as Jim said, the temperature just dipped a little bit. Air temperature 25 degrees, track temperature 45, but it's still been unseasonably warm for this time of year. Yesterday was the hottest May 28th for 100 years in this part of Germany. And I think it'll be to the relief of everybody that the temperatures come down just a little bit. There's Schumacher, you see, once again struggling to break into the top 10 in qualifying. Once again outperformed by teammate Barrichello, but we believe they're on slightly different strategies. Possibly Barrichello carrying just a little bit less fuel than the world champion. There is Barrichello. Came into this weekend with something of a simmering feud going on with Michael Schumacher, and he actually said on Friday, from now on I won't race him as if he is my teammate. I'll race him as any other competitor. Still angry about that move on the last lap in Monte Carlo.
Don't understand why, but another factor, James, they haven't had the second qualifying, so the tyres have done 3 laps less, which is 5% of the Grand Prix distance. It's not insignificant. The heat haze there. Cars on the grid for best part of 40 seconds if you're on the front row, and they're just boiling up. It's a critical time for a Formula 1 car.
Well, you know the drill by now. When the 5 lights go off, we'll be racing 60 laps of the Nürburgring. Nick Heidfeld on pole, and the race. Got a yellow flag down the side. There's a hand up in the air.
Fisichella's got his hands up in the air back there on your right-hand side about car 5. He will now start at the back of the field, and providing they can get it started, that is. And so if it was critical before for temperature, try this for a second chance. Track temperature out there is 45 Celsius. And remember, the cars have no fans or thermostats of any kind. They're only cooled when they pass through the air. And this is a very difficult time mechanically for the cars.
Of course, new rule for this year, when we have this kind of situation, as they try and get Fisichella's car into some sort of neutral, doesn't seem to want to oblige, but the field goes round again and forms up for another grid. It's just to get things going a little bit more quickly. In the past, we had aborted start and then a whole grid procedure again, starting back 5 minutes, but now we just do an extra formation lap and then get this race going. But they need to get that car moving.
Yeah, I mean, they've all got a system on them to disable the clutch, so the car should be able to be pushed. Clearly, it's not working there on Fisichella. The marshals know where all of the buttons are situated. Because he stalled his engine, he can't tool around to the back now. If he did get it going, he's got to go into the pit lane, and he must start from the pit lane. But right now, he's parked on the grid, and the car won't move. They'll have to get something in to drag that Renault away.
The frustrating thing is that just to the left of your screens, about 20 yards, is the break in the fence they need to push the car through. It's as simple as that. It's a small distance, perhaps 4 Grand Prix car lengths. Now a mechanic is running out with a trolley jack, getting permission for trying to get him out. There's Charlie Whiting, the race director. He wants the mechanics to run onto the grid, get that car out of the way.
Yeah, this is a difficult situation. I don't really think there's a plan for this moment. Normally the cars just get wheeled away quickly, but so often this auxiliary clutch doesn't work. But Charlie's a very calm man, but he was getting pretty agitated there. He wants that Renault out of the way now. Ted has some news.
Well, because it's a silly part of the rules, Martin, that says that the mechanics can't go back onto the grid and actually retrieve their stricken car off it. So there they were. Fissy was stuck in first gear. There's nothing he can do, and they needed the mechanics to get on there, sort it out and get off. So I see they've done that now, but a rule that maybe needs changing.
That's what they did. They just put the rear jack under it and wheeled it away using the wheels of the jack so that the engaged rear wheels of the car, and they'll have to start that up in the air now. The hydraulics pressure will have faded away, so no way of getting that out of gear. So often that auxiliary clutch bypass seems to fail on Formula One cars, and maybe they need to toughen up and check that more often. Maybe it should be, I don't know how often that's checked in scrutineering or whatever, but so often cars are not able to be moved. Anyway, drama over. Everybody rejoins to their original grid slots, and whoever was behind Fisichella needs to remember not to go forward and take up his slot. It's so easy to actually, you've got to remember exactly where you were, otherwise you're out of position, you'll get penalised too.
It was Felipe Massa. He has gone where he should, and of course he's got the bonus of having no car in front of him now. Just Rubens Barrichello. You see the gap, 2 cars in front. Hopefully we'll get the European Grand Prix underway this time then. Heidfeld and Raikkonen on the front row of the grid. Fisichella's engine started. He's going to join this race from the pit lane. The race, though, is go! Great start by Raikkonen. The 2 Williams not great again off the start line. Look at Webber going defensive, trying to defend. No, he's now 4th place. Raikkonen is first into turn 1. Webber is attacking back, though. Heidfeld second, and Webber's tangled with Montoya. The 2 Ferraris as well have lost ground in that. But the impact was Webber, I believe, and Montoya. And it looks like the Toyota of Ralf Schumacher involved as well. For the 2nd year in succession, Ralf Schumacher involved in a first corner accident here at the Nürburgring. And there is poor old Mark Webber, 3rd on the grid, 1st into the gravel trap.
Well, Webber braked much later than the fast-starting Montoya. And that's Coulthard up in 4th place from 12th on the grid. And Webber braked much later, but Montoya just turned in anyway. It's so difficult with peripheral vision, with the headrest systems there in the car now, and if you don't catch the driver in the mirror, then looks like big fight going on. The 2 Jordans looking well up there too. So Raikkonen, Heidfeld, Trudy Coulthard, Alonso, Michael Schumacher right down in 17th place. Oh, they're just burying, just to add a bit of further problem to the front of that Williams, just buried it into the gravel trap.
Raikkonen leads, Heidfeld 2nd, Trulli 3rd, 4th, David Coulthard. Absolutely astonishing performance from 12th place on the grid. I bet you he dived down the inside into turn 1 when the trouble happened. He did exactly the same thing last year, and it benefited him massively. 5th, Alonso, that's 1 place made up. 6th, Massa. 7th, Liuzzi. 8th, Jenson Button in the point position already, and with an attacking car underneath him. 9th, Sato. 10th, Montero in the Jordan, and Carter Cahan in the other Jordan, 11th as well. So clearly it all went off in midfield involving Ralf Schumacher, as Raikkonen goes a little deep there into turn 1. Michael Schumacher's fighting his way back up though. He is now in 14th place. Into the pits comes Takuma Sato.
Yeah, Sato was very slow out of one of the top corners, and maybe a nose damage, front wing damage. Yes, they're going to replace that. And well, what a disaster for Alonso though, really. He's got Trulli and Coulthard in front of him, and now we assume Ralf Schumacher pits as well. We know he lost his nose in the Toyota. Dream ticket for Raikkonen, and there is Ralf. That was pretty quick down there, wasn't it? That looked plenty of speed, considering he should have been doing just 80 kilometers per hour. Ralf flying into the pit lane there, and Raikkonen then out on his own. Heidfeld, I'd be surprised if Heidfeld's really got an answer to that, and look, already building a gap back to Trulli and Coulthard. But there's the man with the problem in the Renault, Fernando Alonso in 5th place.
Well, it'll matter a lot to him how much fuel Coulthard and Trulli are carrying, and if, as I was saying before, Jarno Trulli believing he's got quite a healthy slug of fuel in there, that's going to really hurt Fernando Alonso, whose main target today then is to get himself as far up this field as he possibly can. Second place, third place, not the end of the world, even if Raikkonen takes another couple of points, maybe even 4 points out of his World Championship lead. At the moment, Renault do not have an answer for the pace of development of McLaren, who definitely have the quickest car in Formula One. And that first flying lap there, second flying lap for Raikkonen, a 1:32.0. Here's another look at the start then. Hopefully we'll get a good look at what happened down to 1. You see the 2 Williams slow away.
Yeah, watch Montoya's very fast away from P6. He's up to effectively sort of P2, P3 when he gets down there. But Mark Webber keeps sailing in, and well, you'd have to say, for me, Montoya basically turned in on Webber from quite a wide angle. Look, he's coming across the corner. Webber's already there, and Juan Pablo just turned right across his nose, and then all hell let loose behind him. Both Ferraris caught up in that, and that's what allowed the 2 Red Bulls and the 2 BARs to escape most of the damage, although Sato has now pitted. This on board then from Fernando Alonso. There's the slow starting Webber on your right. Now watch, Webber brakes much later, and Montoya just comes straight in towards the apex without considering who might be there, and Alonso just hung on to himself. He probably took a tap at the back as well, and this that's Sato already with the nose gone, and the Williams boys gutted. No longer, Heidfeld didn't lead into the first corner, and Webber first out of the race.
First bit of good news though for Fernando Alonso, incident involving car number 16 under investigation by the stewards. Car number 16, Jarno Trulli. We saw the mechanics leaving the grid quite late, and maybe he will get a penalty for that, which is good news for Fernando Alonso. It's one less car for him to worry about. At end of lap 3 then, Raikkonen crosses the line. Heidfeld then, faster than Raikkonen, just took a little bit out of his lead on that lap. Heidfeld second, Trulli third, Coulthard fourth, 5th Alonso, 6th Massa, 7th Tonio Liuzzi. Both Red Bull Racings in the points at the moment. 8th Jenson Button, 9th Rubens Barrichello, 10th Montoya, still going out there. Obviously not too much damage to his car from that collision with Mark Webber. Wish the same could be said for Webber's car. 11th, Michael Schumacher, looking very racy at the moment, trying to fight his way through the field. He's 4 seconds, though, behind Montoya. That is going to be a battle worth watching. Remember those two here, down into this hairpin a few years ago? Montoya passing Michael Schumacher. That was great sport. Hopefully we'll see some more of that soon. There's confirmation of that message from the race control.
Pretty amazing that Montoya's still in the race, really, isn't it? Especially when you see this one more time. There's Mark Webber braking. Now from that angle, Mark's locked up. Mark can't slow down, but you still have to say he was at least halfway alongside. But what was Montoya had to turn in to a certain extent, but he needed to make some allowance for being out-braked in there. Oh, and there's you can see why Ralf Schumacher needed a new nose. He was up in the air at one point, and there's Michael Schumacher being hung out to dry right around the outside. Montoya spins then, goes up in the air, but he's now running P10 and lapping, other than the 2 leaders, lapping faster than anybody else.
We saw Ralf Schumacher as well just before that. A separate incident, seemed to have a little bit of a bump with Rubens Barrichello, so an eventful first corner for Ralf Schumacher. There you can see the top 8, and well, once again the first corner at the Nürburgring catches them out. But what about David Coulthard? Didn't really expect too much from this Grand Prix. Red Bull Racing not really keeping pace in the development stakes with the other teams, but at the moment it's a bit like the early part of the season all over again for them. Both cars currently in points paying positions. Lap 7 of the European Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen leading, Heidfeld second, Trulli third, Coulthard fourth, Alonso fifth, Massa sixth, Liuzzi seventh, and Barrichello eighth. Just caught the tail end of a picture of Juan Montoya going past Jenson Button. Jenson Button having a difficult lap here. Rubens Barrichello diving down the outside of him.
Yeah, this is turn 1. Jenson tries to hang it out all the way around the outside of 2, and then on the outside into 3, all the time risking himself really with Montoya just behind. I think he hoped he could stay there and have the inside line for turn 4, but not a lot of chance of that. And now Montoya is all over the back of him, and they'll go down to the forward chicane. And Jenson again tucking in very early. The tyres will be dirty by now. He's on the wrong line basically, having to be so defensive. Montoya with better drive, better line off the, and unfortunately we've missed the part there where down into the hairpin Montoya just simply, as the racing line breaks later and better, and takes that place. So Button down to P10 now. Coulthard still up there in fourth and very much hanging on to Jarno Trulli in third. And Alonso is not exactly catching the Red Bull, isn't he? More fuel on board, I suspect.
Absolutely. Drive-through penalty then for Jarno Trulli. Car 16. Team personnel still on the grid at the 15-second signal. There you can see it for yourself. That's this car here. Jarno Trulli currently in third place at the moment, and a drive-through penalty is going to drop him down to something like 12th or 13th place. So it's a big pain for him because the mechanics were still on the grid after the 15-second cut-off time. It's a safety measure, that. Obviously, they don't want mechanics still being on the grid. Many years ago, back in the early 80s, one of the mechanics was killed when he was working on the back of a car, and they basically sent them off on the formation lap, and the driver behind didn't realise and squashed him. And so that's since then, obviously, the last thing you want is any mechanics or human beings on the racetrack, just cars with drivers in them. So that's bad news for Trulli. But what about Giancarlo Fisichella? Fastest.
The only man unable to continue was Mark Webber, who was involved in the incident. And it depends which angle you watch that from as to whose fault you think that one was. He needs watching through a few more times, but certainly Webber braking later than Montoya. Montoya not realising that and just turned into the first corner apex. But this then is Barrichello and Liuzzi. Liuzzi's gone to the middle of the road to make Barrichello go the long way and no way round. And there's sensible driving there from Tony Liuzzi, but he's too slow on the exit into Coca-Cola, and Barrichello has the line, and he will now disappear into the distance as Heidfeld does a new fastest lap of the race. That's Trulli having his drive-through penalty, cannot stop for fuel, they cannot change the tyres anyway, and disaster from him. He was in third place, that elevates Coulthard up to third, Alonso fourth now then. But Heidfeld's pegging Raikkonen's gap. It's down to 2.1 seconds up at the front, but we haven't got time to look at it. There's so much going on in the midfield.
So it looks like Trulli came out in 9th place then, behind Juan Montoya, but in front of the Button Michael Schumacher and soon to be Fisichella scrap as well. Certainly all going off here at the Nürburgring in the early stages. 59 laps, 1 lap less than originally scheduled because we had an aborted start. Giancarlo Fisichella stalling on the parade lap. We're riding on board with Jacques Villeneuve, 15th at the moment, trying to race against the two Jordans in front of him. The Jordans have been struggling really all weekend. They were the winners really of the problem into the first corner, got themselves right up through the field. They've been passed since then by Button, Michael Schumacher, Fisichella and the rest, but Montero and Carter Cahan here in front of Jacques Villeneuve, who does at the moment have an answer for them.
I tell you, the track is so slippery. Watching Jacques having to wait so long to get the nose of that car into the Dunlop hairpin at the bottom of the circuit. He's lapping in the 1:34s. Raikkonen just responded to Heidfeld's pace with a 1:30.9, the gap up to 2.3 seconds. And you got Coulthard and Alonso both in the 1:32s. Massa going well in 5th, also in the 1:32s. Barrichello now flying. He's as fast as the leaders. Now he's got past Liuzzi. Rubens Barrichello. That's good pace, good race pace from the Ferrari. Michael Schumacher can't show that. He's tucked up behind Jenson Button.
Yeah, Button's not all that quick at the moment either. High 1:33s for him, which is restricting Michael Schumacher to the same sort of pace. And that is a couple of seconds slower than his teammate Rubens Barrichello is managing. So Michael Schumacher's race strategy compromised by turn 1, having to avoid the accident involving his brother Mark Webber and Juan Montoya. Had to drive around that, dropped him down to 17th place. He's fought his way back up to 11th behind Jenson Button, but he's now 30 seconds behind race leader Kimi Raikkonen. So we saw Mark Webber eliminated from the race at the start, and he's now talking with Louise Goodman.
Mark, have you calmed down yet?
Oh, it's just disappointing. I think, getting away hasn't been our strength, and both Nick and I obviously were on the back foot down to the first corner a little bit, but there's no excuse really to clip one Pablo. I was trying to defend against Jarno, which was very important. We stayed ahead of him, and just couldn't quite get it turned in at the apex, so that was a shame. We're on a good strategy today, actually, very different to Nick, so yeah, it's a shame.
So do you think that Juan Pablo turned in on you, or do you feel that you just weren't able to stop quick enough?
It's not up to Juan Pablo to give me room at that stage. I think he was, he for sure turned in, but he's got to go around the corner, so if I managed to get in a little bit earlier, but it was just enough. If I maybe rubbed his side pod, it would have been better, but wheel to wheel, there's too much damage.
Bad lad.
Well, he's putting the blame very fairly and squarely on his own shoulders there, isn't he? And he quite clearly thinks he didn't slow down enough, and he did go steaming in there, and he was quite clearly thinking more about the Toyota than the fast-starting McLaren that had already passed him. So that's Mark's view, and he had the best seat in the grandstand there.
Yeah, it's an expensive loss, though, for him and for the Williams team. Teammate Nick Heidfeld managing to keep Raikkonen honest, still only 2 seconds behind him on the racetrack. Quite rightly, we're focusing on this fantastic scrap for 10th place between Jenson Button, back after 5 weeks on the sidelines. BAR Honda serving that suspension for fuel tank irregularities in the Imola Grand Prix. And Jenson's been a frustrated spectator ever since. Now he's back in the thick of the action, and where better to come back to than a battle with Michael Schumacher, albeit only for 10th place. Schumacher, Fisichella has joined the tail of that, as you can see here. Schumacher then getting a good drive. Is he going to dive down the inside of Button?
Oh, that's a tough one to get through there. Jenson would had to have let him give him some space there, because that's a very short braking zone into turn 10 up there, but Button yielding, and I don't think he had much choice. Ferrari team getting ready, so they're the first ones to blink, and that then, I didn't quite see which one that was. It's Barrichello coming in first, so he didn't have much fuel on board. Doesn't say much for his qualifying lap yesterday, does it, in terms of how he got those Bridgestones working. Barrichello first to blink then.
Now, you saw Barrichello had some pretty good race pace. That's the reason why. He was very low on fuel. They've brought him in, and he goes back out again. And well, we'll see what kind of pace he has now. One of the strange things about the Ferrari this year is it seems to go much faster in a race when it's just taken a load of fuel on and goes back out onto the racetrack. We saw that at Imola, we saw it in Monte Carlo. And the only explanation I've managed to get out of Bridgestone and the engineers is that when the car comes into the pits, the tyres just cool down a little bit, and it gives them a chance to, the rubber a chance to reset. When they go back out on the track, there's just a lot more grip all of a sudden, even though they're carrying the extra fuel. It's a very strange thing. No one can quite put their finger on it, but it's definitely a factor.
Well, they've almost certainly changed the strategy of that Ferrari. They put 9 seconds worth of fuel, so it'll be a two-stopper with a short first stint. And who have we got coming in now? That must be Heidfeld. So again, he was quite lightly fueled for his pole position. So Heidfeld pits, and he had a bit of a scruffy lap the lap before, so the gap was up to 3 seconds, and that'll put yet another smile on the McLaren pit wall faces, because this is exactly what they expected. Raikkonen surely will go. That's super early, isn't it? That's at the end of lap 12. I wasn't expecting him in anything like that early.
Now he's going to come out around about Felipe Massa. Massa now crosses the start-finish line just in front of Massa, so he rejoins in 5th place. And Ted Kravitz has some news for us.
Well, it's just as well the BARs of Sato and Button are heavily fueled, because they've got a problem with their fuel rig. They've actually had to bring a new hose out from the back of the garage, and they're currently testing it now. The mechanics aren't particularly happy. They do have a backup, which seems to be okay, but worries over the fuel rig down here at BAR.
Well, and worries over their pace too. Button down in 10th. Sato down in 18th at the moment, having had that problem early on. Raikkonen leads now from David Coulthard by what will be around 19 seconds. Coulthard into the 1:31s and beginning to pull away from Alonso. Coulthard's found some good race balance and pace, hasn't he? And this is Michael Schumacher with a very brave move on Jenson Button. Would like to see that from another angle, thank you very much. And Jenson's looking left into his mirror and realised Michael got the jump on him. Couldn't do anything about it. It's tough passing into there.
Well, BAR don't seem to have race pace, do they? Takuma Sato lapping in the low 1:34s down in 17th place, and he can't get past the Minardi of Christian Albers, or the Jordan of Narain Kartikeyan. I see Jacques Villeneuve has managed to get past one of those two Jordans. We saw him earlier on. He's broken that one of them. He's still got Montero to pass down in 14th place. So some big names struggling at the back. And Jenson Button's pace as well, not particularly spectacular, lapping in the high 1:33s. Michael Schumacher, now he's got past Jenson Button, lapping in the high 1:31s, 2 seconds a lap faster than Jenson. Here's Antonio Liuzzi. He's in 6th place. Montoya is bearing down on him. That is the top 8 at the moment at the Nürburgring. A lot more action still to come. Lap 16 of 59 here at the Nürburgring, the European Grand Prix. We're riding on board with Juan Pablo Montoya. His McLaren teammate Kimi Raikkonen is comfortably leading this Grand Prix by 20 seconds from David Coulthard. And Coulthard's teammate here, Antonio Liuzzi, is the man in the sights of Juan Montoya. Montoya involved in a controversial collision in the first corner with Mark Webber, which certainly hurt the race chances of Michael Schumacher and of Ralf Schumacher. Both of them still in the race. Michael Schumacher 9th, Ralf Schumacher down in 18th place. Montoya got away with it scot-free, as he did in Monaco last weekend. And he's certainly got a much faster car than this Red Bull Racing. And where's he going to make his move?
Liuzzi doing well, driving nicely, P6. He's got a pretty electric style on the way into the braking zones. And I think that's probably, you've got Montoya sitting there wondering what's going on. I mean, Liuzzi just launched it into turn 1 and managed to slow it down nicely. The Red Bull car braking well, very well, not locking its wheels. So Coulthard running very strongly up in P2. I bet Raikkonen didn't expect to see a distance to Coulthard when he was leading this Grand Prix. Coulthard started 12th, and both Red Bulls were pretty handily placed through that first corner incident. Still 19 runners in this Grand Prix, only Mark Webber not running, and he blames himself for that first corner incident. Brake too late, snatched a wheel, and Montoya having to turn into the corner. So Raikkonen's lead up to 21.4 seconds from Coulthard, and Alonso still 1.1 behind. Coulthard in 3rd place. Damage limitation going nicely, I think, for Alonso in terms of just keeping the points pegged to Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, you can see Raikkonen has a stranglehold on this race, but like I said before, everything from 2nd place through to 8th and even beyond that to 10th and 12th places is completely up for grabs here this afternoon. We've seen lots of overtaking already, and I think the more this race goes on, the more overtaking you're going to see. Juan Montoya isn't going to stay behind Liuzzi for long. There's an awful lot of people coming through, and you've got to take your hats off to Red Bull Racing. Christian Horner, the team principal, Gunther Steiner, the technical director. They've managed to get their car into the points in every race now, except Monaco last weekend. Sometimes it's only been a single point here or there for Coulthard or Liuzzi, but big score in Australia, remember, 7 points there. Got them off to a great start. And they look on target to score a few more here this afternoon.
Yeah, they were on for some massive points in Monaco as well, if Michael hadn't run into the back of Coulthard. So, yeah, they're certainly getting a better race pace than they are qualifying. And we talked about how would Michael go once he was released from behind Jenson Button. Well, quite quickly is the answer. Not stunningly so. Certainly Barrichello's pace was all about being just about empty of fuel. And they were on board with Montoya then. He's better under braking than Liuzzi. They've knocked all of those bollards down so they can cheat even more on the curbs of the NGK chicane. Gives the suspension and transmission a right pummeling over there. But what you're always going to be on the gas, a car length or so behind the driver in front, and you're going to understeer a bit more in his turbulent air. And that puts you on your back foot, and the straight's just not long enough for Montoya to catch and pass Liuzzi. Surely Montoya's with a faster car, but Liuzzi is driving his very nicely indeed.
Yes, and he needs this, Tonio Liuzzi. This is his final drive for a while. Christian Klien is coming back to drive the car in Montreal, Indianapolis, and for the foreseeable future after that. I think the management of Red Bull didn't really want Liuzzi to go out on the low of Monte Carlo as the McLaren team gets ready for one of its 2 drivers to come in for a pit stop. This is lap 18.
Hey, if that's Raikkonen, Renault are going to be very happy with that, and it is Raikkonen. Kimi Raikkonen pits on lap 18. I thought he would go 20-21 at least. So again, that's well, that's thrown a bit of a double six, hasn't it?
It certainly has. If he had that little fuel in the car, then he didn't have as much pace as you would have expected. He wasn't exactly scampering away from the rest. He certainly wasn't scampering away from Nick Heidfeld in the early stages. In goes the fuel nozzle. There you can see the driver's helmet, intense concentration.
Tyres looked in good nick though, didn't they? The little we saw of them. Raikkonen's tyres looking pretty good, and look, he had a 20-odd second lead over Coulthard and Alonso, which he's now lost with that stop. But
never mind Coulthard, he's on to see Alonso down the side. There you go. Alonso is in front of Kimi Raikkonen. Of course, both of those 2 cars, Coulthard and Alonso, both have to make their pit stops, and that'll put Raikkonen back into the lead. But how much further into this Grand Prix can Alonso go now? That's going to be interesting, because he's very low on fuel. Raikkonen's fat with fuel.
Never mind Coulthard, you say. He's leading the Grand Prix. It's amazing. Coulthard leads in the Red Bull. Alonso then, he can start playing around with Raikkonen's strategy here if he needs to. But you see, Raikkonen had a 20-second advantage. That's quite a lot, isn't it? But he's not exactly under pressure, shall we say. but I think Alonso will be very pleased to see that, providing he can go a good bit further, that on net pace he's probably not too far away from Kimi Raikkonen.
When I said never mind Coulthard, what I meant, of course, is let's have a look at where Raikkonen comes out relative to Alonso, because that was clearly going to be pretty close. In the end, it wasn't quite as close as it seemed with Alonso coming down the straight. He was able to keep himself in front of Raikkonen. So that's the order after 8 laps. Michael Schumacher up into the points then, from 10th on the grid, despite dropping down to 17th after the first corner incident. And David Coulthard is leading a Grand Prix once again. What a sweet feeling for him. It's certainly been a while for David, and he's certainly enjoying himself there. He's been really quick in the opening part of this Grand Prix. His pace has been a match for anything that any of the front runners have had. And you can see that McLaren are out in the pit lane, obviously for Juan Montoya. David Coulthard.
And Liuzzi pits at the same time. Montoya goes, I don't believe it. He's been following him around, and it seemed like he might have a chance to leapfrog Liuzzi. Liuzzi giving it plenty of space up to the speed line. He was a touch too cautious there, almost caught Montoya out. So now it's a race between the mechanics, and Red Bull versus McLaren. Otherwise, Montoya's got another sector of this race to follow the Red Bull car, and it's going to be really, really tight. And Montoya's away. Surely he's going to just make it out. He does. Or does he? Yes, he passes Liuzzi in the pit lane.
Yeah, good work by the McLaren mechanics. Montoya makes up a place. You saw Massa making a pit stop at the same time. Fair bit of fuel going into Montoya's car, but they still managed to turn him around more quickly than Red Bull Racing could turn around Liuzzi. That's frustrating for the driver, through no fault of his own, to have dropped behind and lost the place after some great defensive driving. But well, he doesn't like those new tyres. We're riding on board with David Coulthard. Last time he won a Grand Prix was at the beginning of the 2003 season, if you remember, in Australia with McLaren Mercedes, and that was his last win of the 13 in his career. He's diving into the pits, so that little beautiful moment is over. But nevertheless, Red Bull Racing have led Grand Prix laps now. That's another little milestone for them in their first season in Formula One since they took over this team from Jaguar Racing.
And Coulthard being held up on the entrance to the pits too, which may just play into Alonso's hands. Alonso has to get the pedal down now. This is his chance, is to lead Coulthard, and then just checking the radiator ducts, pulling any rubbish out of there, bits of old tyre and any paper that's come in from the crowd. Michael Schumacher pits from what was 5th place. And yeah, they're just getting into the oh, and Coulthard just makes that pass on the way out of the pit lane, and that was crucial to give himself a chance with Alonso. There comes Button and Fisichella. So good news for Coulthard. He's made his pit stop and stayed ahead of those two.
Yes, he's come out in 6th place, David Coulthard. So what a strong opening to the Grand Prix for him. Michael Schumacher, that's Felipe Massa in 9th place going through, and that means that Michael Schumacher, well, he was obviously in front of Massa before the stop, so that's 9th place for Michael Schumacher that he rejoins in. Massa up into 8th place after, with 39 of the 59 laps still to go here, and it's been action all the way, with pit stops, incidents, accidents and overtaking, and a very, very long way to go. As you can see, those are the people who haven't stopped then. Alonso, Button, Fisichella, they did a good job in qualifying to get themselves as far up the grid as they did. And what about Ferrari's strategy? Totally split strategy then. Barrichello pitting on lap 11, Michael Schumacher on lap 21. 10 laps difference in the fuel.
What I want to see is this guy's rear tyres, and they look okay at the moment. We've seen him really struggle in Imola and Monte Carlo for rear tyre degradation and wear. But you have to say, from what you can see of them, they look okay. He's pulling a 1:31. Raikkonen with a new load of fuel on board, a 1:32.5, a second and a bit per lap. So Alonso might just be able to do something about Raikkonen this afternoon, but he's going to have to pull something pretty special out of the back to pull back that 20 seconds he was missing in the first part of the race.
Christian Albers in the Minardi. Team celebrating its 21st year in Grand Prix racing this year, and Paul Stoddart, the boss, celebrating his 50th birthday this weekend. There you can see Jenson Button fighting off the attentions of Giancarlo Fisichella. This is the battle for 5th place on the racetrack, and Louise Goodman is talking to Red Bull Racing boss Christian Horner.
Christian, this has got to be going better for you than you could have expected.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a great start to the race. We capitalised on the first lap incident, and David kept his nose clean. Tonio found his way past, and it was great to see David leading a lap of the Grand Prix.
You see race pace, and certainly most people were expecting based on what you've been doing for the rest of the weekend.
Yeah, we've been working hard on it over the weekend. You know, we look reasonably good on the tires, and David obviously has got pretty decent pace. So, you know, we're hoping we can stick with it to the end.
Disappointed to lose that place to Montoya in the stop?
Yeah, but I think that was a penalty for putting a little bit more fuel in. So we'll see how it pans out over the next few laps.
Thanks, Christian.
What Christian won't know is there's an incident under investigation involving David Coulthard. So was it as Fisichella catches Button out on the top of turn 11? Jensen really struggling with that car today. Coulthard's in front of them, but has he been speeding in the pits, or did he? Now they released the Minardi. Did he pass the Minardi in the pit lane? Fisichella makes the move, then has to pit straight away. So it could be a disaster here for David Coulthard and Red Bull Racing. We'll have to wait to find out. Meanwhile, Alonso does a new fastest lap of the race, a 1:30.8, and Raikkonen does a 1:32.5. So Alonso really eating into that 20-second deficit.
Yeah, he's taken 7.5 seconds out of it already. You need 20 seconds to make a pit stop here and rejoin in front of the manual racing. He only has 7 at the moment, but it means he's cut a big chunk out of the margin. And today's race really is all about cutting chunks out of margins. Raikkonen wants to take a big chunk out of Alonso's championship lead. Doesn't look like it's going to happen at the moment. Drive-through penalty. Oh no, for David Coulthard. David, where was the button when you needed it to control the speed? Oh no. And, well, any chance of points is starting to evaporate now for Coulthard. Add 20 seconds to his time at the moment, and you drop down to 11th place. He's currently in 4th. That is one costly mistake.
Disaster, and it certainly wasn't on the way in, was it? It must have been on the way out as he was trying to jump that Minardi. So Coulthard then's either released the button too early or maybe a technical fault as Alonso pits then at the end of lap 22. Ted?
Yeah, that was a good qualifying by him, wasn't it? Let's see how he likes the car. The Renault boys stop. Yes, they are adjusting the rear tyre pressures. Just a small adjustment. So maybe he's not happy with the balance, or maybe it's oversteer or traction, more likely. That's a long stop, isn't it, by Renault? That's 9.6. Fisichella even longer, 10.7, I think it was.
So he'll be, I would imagine, in a clear and easy second place now. Alonso has to... They're all losing a lot of time on this out lap, and it's just a question of getting... And this is presumably Coulthard doing his drive-through penalty. And as Jensen Button makes his first scheduled stop of the afternoon. And bad news there for DC.
Yeah, very bad news. There he comes out, you can see. And is that... well, that's certainly Friesaka, who is currently down in 19th place, but I think that was 9th. There's David Coulthard rejoining them. We'll see exactly where he is. Difficult to tell at the moment. You can't see too many cars around him, but Alonso's made his stop then. It's certainly game on in the race with this man, Kimi Raikkonen, and this is lap 24. Lap 26 of the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring, not even at half distance yet. We've had plenty of action. All shapes and sizes. David Coulthard serving a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane, and well, we were wondering where it would drop him back in. It's dropped him in 10.5 seconds behind the 4th place man, Rubens Barrichello. So Felipe Massa is 5 seconds behind him in 6th. Raikkonen leading by 3.8 seconds from Nick Heidfeld, who's on a completely different strategy from the McLaren driver. Raikkonen on a solid 2-stopper, dividing the race into 3 more or less equal chunks. Heidfeld appears to be 3-stopping here this afternoon, so still got to come in a couple more times for pit stops. Alonso is 3rd. He's 14 seconds behind Heidfeld. His task here for the rest of the race is to get in front of Heidfeld on a different strategy. At the moment, Heidfeld the quicker man on the racetrack. 4th is Barrichello, half a minute behind the race leader. At the moment, the Ferrari pace, nothing particularly spectacular as we look at race leader Raikkonen through the slow chicane. Coulthard 5th then, Massa 6th, Michael Schumacher is 7th. Not at the moment showing any signs of the kind of electric pace that was predicted as the leader carves past another back marker. On Juan Montoya, he's just tucked up behind Michael Schumacher. Schumacher passing him in the pit stops. We didn't see it, but that's where it happened. Liuzzi, we saw him get passed by Montoya in the pit stops. He's down in 9th place now and out of the points. Jarno Trulli is 10th. He was as high as 3rd for a while, but he had to do a drive-through penalty as well for the mechanics still being on the track on the parade lap after the 15-second board was given. Jensen Button is 11th. No pace in that BAR Honda today. Giancarlo Fisichella looked very promising 10 or 15 laps ago, but struggling a little bit now. He's in 12th place as Ralf Schumacher pits for the 2nd time this afternoon First time was for a new nose cone after being involved in the first corner incident, so he's gone pretty deep into this Grand Prix before making a fuel stop.
Yeah, just beginning to see the signs of wear then on the back of that Toyota as Villeneuve steams down. He was just behind Ralf Schumacher, so Ralf long way down the field. It's Coulthard, and he came back onto the racetrack, so he won't get penalised. He didn't make or lose, would have made a mess of the underneath. We saw Raikkonen, you said he went through the chicane, James. He certainly did go right through it, didn't he, earlier on, and then slicing past a back marker, taking no prisoners whatsoever. So Raikkonen knows he's got a race on his hands. He's back in the woods at the moment, Kimi Raikkonen, amongst the traffic, and really not good pace for him this last 2 or 3 laps. That's why he's hustling that thing along so much.
Yeah, fastest man on the track at the moment is Rubens Barrichello in 4th place. He's lapping in the low 1 minute 31s, but the pace quite a bit slower than we saw last year. The track not at the moment giving an awful lot of grip. The cloud comes over, sometimes it goes away. The track temperature is still high at 43 degrees. The drivers having to work quite hard out there, but be under no illusions, they are all pushing very hard here this afternoon. This isn't one of those slow burn attritional jobs. This is an attack from the outset job. And well, we're riding on board with Juan Montoya. Topsy-turvy start to his career at McLaren so far. You can see Takuma Sato pitting from 13th place there. Not been a happy return to Formula One so far for the BAR squad, who are talking up their chances at this Grand Prix. They reckon that missing Monaco and all the work that has to go on there to make a high downforce car for the street circuit, not having to do any of that would give them a bit of an advantage coming to the Nürburgring. But I think as much as anything else, they're a little bit cautious about the engine. Hasn't done any work for 5 weeks. They were worried about whether the seals would fail, whether there'd be some corrosion inside it. No one's ever really built a Formula One engine and sat around for 5 weeks before.
Tell you, those rear tyres are looking a bit skinny on the back of that Ferrari. The inside, because you run about 1 degree of camber, the top of the wheel leans in, so you tend to wear the inside of the tyre more quickly. We're not at half distance yet. Michael Schumacher could well find himself pretty tired out by the end of this, so you can assume Barrichello will be in the same position, but definitely tyre wear I think is going to come into play in the last 20 laps.
Well, it's interesting you should say that, because across the Friday practice into the Saturday, Michael Schumacher on the hard tyres did a combination over the Friday afternoon into the Saturday of 22 laps on one set of tyres, and they looked like most of the rubber had gone from them, and certainly the Bridgestone guys were saying, don't worry, it'll be fine in the race, but it looks as though perhaps it's not going to be all that fine after all. Certainly the way that Schumacher's going, the pace he's going at the moment, is nothing special at all, and the promised speed of the Ferrari not forthcoming at this stage. Raikkonen leading, Heidfeld still just 2 seconds behind him. Not seeing much of him, the quiet man of Formula One, but he's having a stupendous race here this afternoon. Alonso third, 15 seconds behind Heidfeld. 4th is Barrichello, 5th Coulthard, 6th Massa, 7th Michael Schumacher, 8th Montoya. But interestingly, Martin, from Coulthard in 5th place down to Fisichella in 12th place, just over 15 seconds. That's a real close pack, and that's where all the points will be shared out here this afternoon.
Yeah, one of the Ferraris is not fast, but the other most certainly is. 4th place man Barrichello at the moment, taking a big bite out of Alonso's time every time around. He's just 7.3 seconds behind him now. So the next thing you're going to see is Barrichello cruising up behind the World Championship leader Fernando Alonso.
Here's Raikkonen, led here back in 2003. Remember the heartache for him of leading this race, then his Mercedes engine let go. And even Norbert Haug, the boss of Mercedes-Benz, admitting recently that that cost Kimi the World Championship in 2003. He ended up just a couple of points behind Michael Schumacher at the end of 2003. Well, Raikkonen said this weekend that he wants to win the World Championship, and now he said, I finally have all the tools I need to get the job done. Supreme confidence at the moment from the Finn, and no signs of any of the unreliability issues that McLaren suffered back in 2003.
Coulthard just had a very slow lap in P5. He's got Massa, Michael Schumacher, Montoya right behind him now, so whether that's an error or the beginning of a problem, we obviously didn't see it. And also something else we didn't see during the pit stops, Michael Schumacher somehow with a faster in-lap, or because he actually was stationary for half a second longer, but he cleared Montoya. They're 7th and 8th at the moment. But Coulthard certainly got a solid first sector pace on this current lap, so maybe Coulthard made a mistake or caught a back marker.
Just looking at a heli shot then of McLaren going a little bit wide, and looking very wide indeed. Raikkonen making a mistake, an unforced error. And they just showed a Heidfeld 1 graphic. That's why Nick Heidfeld nicked in front of Kimi Raikkonen at that moment. I was wondering what that graphic was all about. And there you go, there's the answer. So, unforced mistake from Kimi Raikkonen allows Nick Heidfeld back into the lead of the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. McLaren mechanics not...
Williams are out.
Williams are out, so it looks like poor old Heidfeld's going to... I think his glory's only going to last a very short time. But nevertheless, what a moment for Raikkonen. And that's great news for Alonso, because Raikkonen would have lost time there.
And worse still, he could well have damaged some of the undertray, some straights, or the tongue that comes out the front of the undertray, which cost Fisichella 25% of his downforce when his went awry back in Barcelona. So Raikkonen then really living dangerously. We've seen him off the road. We saw him heavily across the chicanes. We've got a drive-through for penalty for Christian Albers for ignoring the blue flags. He's down in 18th place. Still 19 runners of the 20 starters. Only Mark Webber out, parked in the gravel trap after a first corner incident. So let's have a look at the gaps now then. Alonso is going to be something around 10 or 11 seconds, I would guess, behind Kimi Raikkonen. There's Heidfeld pitting from the lead.
Yeah, in comes the race leader for the second of what we expect to be 3 stops. Big lock up there, had to get out of the brakes. Ted Kravitz.
No good locking them up. Ted, sorry.
But there was no emotion on the faces of McLaren mechanics. They know they've got Heidfeld covered. Let's see if Williams decide to switch Heidfeld's strategy, though. If it's 6 or 7 seconds he's remaining on the 3, or if he's got to, well, what is it, 8.1. Well, that's interesting. Does he have to stop again on that one, Martin?
Oh, for sure he does. Yeah, the nozzle came out at just over 6 seconds. No question at all. He's sticking to the 3-stop strategy. 28 laps to go here this afternoon. That's almost half distance. He'd have to have been the nozzle on for about 9 seconds plus to have taken enough fuel to go to the finish.
Yeah, and will he regret that big lockup, the unnecessary lockup on the speed line there, the flat patch? It's tending to, the driver loses visibility, shakes the car to pieces. And the more you hear the drivers talking about this one tyre for the entire Grand Prix, if they've got a flat spot, it's giving them horrendous problems later on, where they cannot focus at top speed.
Well, the off for Kimi Raikkonen cost him 4 seconds on the stopwatch. Didn't cost him as much as it might have done versus Alonso, whose pace is more or less the same as Raikkonen's at the moment. So it's 14 seconds, the gap between Raikkonen and Alonso at the moment. And that's going to take some serious making up by Fernando. He may well feel that second place is going to be good enough, just Raikkonen just taking a couple of points out of him once again. He's got a 22-point lead. And with the new point system in Formula One that came in a few years ago, it does take a long time to catch up. Here in another look, what happened here to Kimi Raikkonen?
He just got a bit of oversteer in the early part of the forward chicane, kept it straight, across the curve, that rips the floor apart, and managed to just creep back on the outside of the track there. Fast part of the racetrack, so Raikkonen I think he just tried to get away from him on the way in, almost caught him by surprise with the looks of it, gave it an armful of opposite lock, and straight off the road.
Well, we saw Michael Schumacher make mistakes like that and get away with them in the past, go on to win Grand Prix quite a few times. And somehow he always gets away with it. Maybe Raikkonen has inherited that good luck as well. This is lap 33 then. Raikkonen, Alonso, Barrichello, Heidfeld, your top 4. 25 laps to go here in the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. James Allen and Martin Brundle with you. And what an eventful race we've had so far. And there's another incident. Ralf Schumacher flying off from 14th place. He was involved in a first corner incident with Juan Montoya and Mark Webber. This is what happened. He's not the first person to make a mistake in that corner. Kimi Raikkonen's done it. And this one, though, Raikkonen got away with his. Ralf Schumacher does not.
Yeah, running wide, got clumsy on the curb. I think tried to stay on it. Yellow flags are out, so no overtaking down there at the moment. No risk of a safety car in my view on this one, although I hate to see those vehicles on the racetrack. I nearly died against one of those back in '94. It's a shocking thing to see when you're basically sitting on the ground and looking up at something like that. Now Kimi Raikkonen lapping Jacques Villeneuve has a horrendous lockup with that right front that'll be looking like a 50-pence piece now, and shaking his eyeballs and also costing himself another couple of seconds, and he's got to repass Villeneuve again. So Raikkonen getting horribly ragged.
Well, that's the second thing that's gone wrong then for Kimi Raikkonen. An incident at the Ford curve, now this as well. That's interesting. Is that a problem with the brakes for the McLaren, or the tyres just not, front tyres just not holding on the way he wanted? He's certainly not because he's pushing too hard, that's for sure, because the lap times at the moment in the 132s, not particularly fast, and that's interesting, very interesting indeed. So the gap Alonso hasn't been able to capitalise on it, Martin. That's the interesting thing. No. Raikkonen's making these mistakes, but Alonso hasn't fundamentally got the speed in his car to do anything about it. He's still around 15 seconds behind race leader Raikkonen.
And Alonso's quite slow, actually. As you say, he's not making hay there at all, with Raikkonen throwing himself all around the scenery. Raikkonen still leads then comfortably on lap 36 by 15 seconds. Heidfeld third, but he's out of kilter with the pit stop strategy, although like most of them, he's got to stop one more time now. Barrichello fourth. Coulthard beginning to re-catch Barrichello now. Massa falling away in sixth. Michael Schumacher seventh. Can't seem to go anywhere. He's tucked up behind the Sauber. Montoya eighth. Liuzzi ninth. Trulli 10th. Button struggling in the 1:33. He's back in 11th place.
I tell you what, David Coulthard will be kicking himself after this race about that pit lane speeding fine, because without that, he'd be nibbling on the heels of third place man Nick Heidfeld, and they both have one more stop to make here this afternoon. Well, we're delighted to say that technical director of the Williams team, Sam Michael, is joining us live from the pit wall. Thank you very much for joining us, Sam. Well, first of all, what's your overview of the situation that Nick Heidfeld finds himself in?
Basically, he's in the order of 9 seconds down on Fernando. We think that we're going about 4 laps longer than Fernando at the last pit stop. He's got to stay within, by that pit stop, he's got to stay within probably 15 seconds of him. It's 8.8 now just on that lap. So Nick's doing a very good job. Either way, it's only Heidfeld, it's only Nick racing Alonso at the moment. Raikkonen's gone because he's only got one stop to make as well.
Sam, why didn't you move to a 2-stop at the first fuel when you saw the carnage from the first corner?
We couldn't do because of the amount of fuel that he would have to carry. He would have dropped out way too back behind those guys. It's the most inefficient way to do the 2-stop because he made up so much ground in the first stint. He already had sort of 15.5 seconds on the field, and that time he only needed 12, so he made 3 seconds more than what he had to.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Sam. We know you've got an awful lot of things on your mind. Your man is third place at the moment in the European Grand Prix. Nick Heidfeld started from pole position. It's great to hear from the men who make the decisions on the pit wall for the teams, and certainly Williams coming back with a bang in Formula 1 the last 2 Grand Prix. A double podium in Monaco last weekend. Pole position for Heidfeld here with Webber third, and now on at the moment for another podium. But it sounds like Sam is thinking in terms of trying to leapfrog Fernando Alonso. At the moment, it's not really on because Heidfeld lapping at the same sort of pace as Fernando Alonso, who is 8 seconds ahead of him. Rubens Barrichello, how is his challenge looking? He's 14 seconds behind Heidfeld. And as I say, Coulthard the one who'll be kicking himself because he'd be fighting out a podium position as well. A remarkable afternoon for David Coulthard, spoiled by not hitting his pit lane speed limit button when he should have done, and it cost him a big chunk of time and at least one position on the racetrack. Hats off to Felipe Massa though in the Sauber, doing a very solid job in 6th place. He certainly bounced back from a poor showing at Monaco to put his teammate in the shade. Villeneuve struggling back with the Jordans, down in 14th place in the same car.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where that was with Coulthard, whether he took a gamble on the end of the pit lane to get out ahead of that Minardi that was on its way out of the pits, or what, we don't know. Sometimes technically these things can fail as well, but more often than not, the driver's either a touch late on the way in or a bit over-eager on the exit. Coulthard then running, as you say, P5 at the moment. Raikkonen from Alonso, Heidfeld third, Barrichello fourth, Coulthard fifth, as you can see. Massa, Michael Schumacher, not really going anywhere, as he hasn't shown the prodigious pace, sorry, I can't get that word out, that we were expecting. And, well, James, if Ferrari don't do it here, where are they going to do it?
Well, that is the $10 million question, isn't it? Certainly the smart money in the paddock is on them, springing a bit of a surprise at Indianapolis, but I know that Toyota's Mike Gascoigne believes that Toyota will be the fastest car at Indy, but certainly Villeneuve very wide there on the final corner. Certainly last year Toyota were very quick with a not particularly competitive car, so let's see whether they have the legs. But as Villeneuve dives down the inside of the Minardi, not a great place for the great Canadian to be finding himself 14th. And just going past Minardi. He's 13 seconds behind Takuma Sato as Jacques Villeneuve, so a fairly lonely afternoon amongst the also-rans for him. But yeah, I mean, Ferrari, it's interesting that the problem has been right since they first started testing these 2005 long specification tyres. As the BAR there trying to dive past the back marking Minardi as well. The problem for Ferrari has been the single lap performance, hasn't it? They can't get a single lap out of them, and that hurts them, puts them down the grid. And getting the car and this tyres into the sweet spot has been a real problem for them as well. There's Mark Webber, just a spectator, with Sir Frank Williams down in the Williams garage. A long face for him. Two very well-matched drivers, Webber and Nick Heidfeld, so often occupying the same piece of tarmac throughout this season, but not here this afternoon. Heidfeld third at the moment. That's where Webber will undoubtedly feel he should be as well. But, well, taken out in that first corner incident with Montoya.
Yes, Alonso's upped his pace as well in second. He had to, really, otherwise he'll be under pressure from Heidfeld. At the moment, it's looking pretty much status quo, isn't it? Raikkonen's got the race under control, even if he hasn't always got his car under control. But he seems to have just calmed that down a little bit now. Alonso comfortably in second place by 15 seconds. Heidfeld falling behind. He did a very slow lap last time around. He's 11.6 down. Let's see what it is this time. And he's lost another second now, so Heidfeld beginning to fall into the clutches of Barrichello, and well, they've all got to stop one more time.
Yeah, they have, but as we've seen in quite a few Grand Prix recently, tyre wear is going to become more and more of an issue as the race goes on. They've got to look after these tyres, because it's the only set they get to take them through qualifying and the race. At least there's one less qualifying session now, as you mentioned at the start. You don't have to do the low fuel run anymore, which takes a little bit of life out of the tyres, but they look pretty good on the BAR at the moment. Certainly one or two of the drivers, their pace starting to drop off, suggests that these next 20 laps are going to be quite long ones. There you can see Michael Schumacher, I think that is, and Juan Montoya. They're duking it out for 7th place. Schumacher was in front of Montoya, but Montoya must have attacked him. It looks like Schumacher's struggling. He can't get the front of the car into the corners at the moment. And, well, what's Montoya going to do? Good drive out of the final corner, out of that corner for him. And this is what we want to see, isn't it?
Yeah, Michael went early and defensive, had to just keeping hold of the back end. So close that I wonder if he'd be getting dirty tyres, but actually it'll be Montoya with the dirty tyres at that point. Montoya taking a big dive down the outside. Michael had him covered, really. And all you can do is turn in and hope the guy doesn't come across and take your front wheel. They nearly swapped stickers on their tyres, didn't they?
You see how deep he pushed him out. He didn't want to let him back in at all. He was trying to push him off towards Cologne. But eventually he let him back onto the racetrack, and Montoya is regrouping now. Well, these two have got form around here, as I mentioned before, down at the hairpin a couple of years ago. And it ended up with Michael Schumacher with the rear tyres beached in the gravel trap. Got a push from the marshals, remember. Got him back going again. A few words said after that. I think Ross Brawn actually said after that, well, that shows that Montoya has got no class. The rest of the world thought it was a great overtaking move. And here at the moment, Michael Schumacher doesn't seem to have a huge amount of speed under him at the moment. And Montoya, this McLaren has preserved its tyres very well so far throughout the Grand Prix of 2005. This is going to be a battle well worth watching.
The McLaren's got more downforce. I think that's why they're keeping their tyres better. I'm sure it's also to do with the control systems and with the traction control, etc. But fundamentally, if you've got downforce, you can keep your tyres much better intact.
Well, when you hear people talking about high temperatures and what it'll do to the tyres, as Schumacher puts a lap on the Minardi of Frisacker and Montoya follows him through as well. Basically, what the high temperatures do is they put more stress on a tyre for obvious reasons. So what you need to do to counteract it is to put more downforce on the car, just to make sure the car doesn't slide around too much, particularly the rear tyres. And obviously you need to use more traction control to make sure the wheels don't spin too much as you accelerate out of the slow corners. By doing just a little bit of both of those things, you can make an enormous difference to the life of the tyres over a sort of 2-hour 60-lap Grand Prix. And even a few tenths of a second a lap can ramp up over 60 laps, you can see, to be a big gain or a big loss.
Yeah, all the grooves still visible on the back of Michael's car, so not wearing probably as much as I feared it might. There's your race leader Raikkonen, a slow-mo. Look at the underneath of the car there, the side of the car where he's been off the road, collecting gravel and bits of rubbish. And no barge boards or anything hanging loose there. I don't think that's a particular drama. It's just one of those slow motion, moody pieces of Formula One footage the directors like to show, and that's more of a drama, isn't it? But it releases the pressure off the brake pedal, and that won't do any damage to the tyre.
No, it was a lock-up on the left front, the one that we saw earlier on, that was quite sustained into turn one. That was a lock-up on the right front. So, well, Raikkonen certainly having an eventful afternoon. That's the margin, as it has been for a while, despite the mistakes that Raikkonen made, as he puts a lap on Takuma Sato. 13th place Takuma Sato, BAR's return after their suspension. Not a happy one then for him. He goes a lap down in a car that the team was claiming, hoped would be a contender for the race win here. Certainly hasn't happened. Jenson Button, his teammate, is only a couple of places ahead of him in 11th, and he looks like he will get lapped by the race leader at some point before the end of this Grand Prix as well. Not at all what Jenson had in mind.
Well, Jacques there trying to be helpful was almost too helpful. Cost them both time because he arrived at the apex. And I think he thought the Renault would be past him and lapped him, but by the time he got there, so it didn't quite work out. He was being generous, but almost over-generous.
There you can see the sole remaining BMW Williams in the Grand Prix. Nick Heidfeld, third place, 16 seconds behind Alonso. His pace, though, dropping off about a second a lap now in comparison with the Renault. This is an attritional phase of this race, and no mistake. It's a big week for the relationship between BMW and Williams. Mario Tyson, the boss of BMW, saying yesterday, as the McLaren mechanics come out onto the apron, that there is certainly going to be a decision towards the end of June on where they go from here. And importantly, he said he expects the relationship with Williams to continue in 2006, but it's not much of a secret. There's a major board meeting at BMW on Tuesday to decide the strategy going forward for the team, and Mario Tyson believed to be putting a proposal down that BMW should buy the Sauber team at some point in the next few years, start out by supplying engines to them, and then buy the team over the next couple of years. That would certainly put the cat amongst the pigeons, wouldn't it? Into the pits comes your race leader on lap 44. Ted Kravitz is in the McLaren garage.
Well, let's see if Kimi has got a problem with his brakes. He's very slow into the box, but hits his marks fine. They're taking a very good look at those front brakes. The mechanics seem happy with it. The front tyres are in a bit of a state, but oh, he's broken his right barge board, James. He's just broken the barge board where the barge board meets the beginning of the floor ahead of the side pods, so that could account for some of the strange driving.
Yeah, well, remember, I think it was back in Melbourne, that came adrift completely, didn't it, and got stuck in the side pod for a while for Raikkonen before it broke free. So he's certainly got to nurse that car a little bit. But I thought his tyres didn't look too bad, actually, considering he's moving into the final phase of the race. But Kimi Raikkonen then, solid stop. You see so many less problems in pit stops now. I think without the car going up and down for the wheel change, the refuelers seem to have a slightly easier time, and of course you're not going to get any sticking wheels. We saw guys parked there with spare tyres. You're not allowed to fit them unless you've got a puncture, and then you've got to fit a tyre that is used. You can't put new tyres on. But I'd like to see another onboard shot there. If we watch the front wing of that McLaren moving around like crazy under braking, there's a lot of conjecture in the paddock about wings that are flexible and adjusting themselves. Obviously you want as much wing as you can get in the slow corners, but you want it to wind itself off. You can get away with it in the high-speed corners, and they are quite strictly controlled. But the front wing of the McLaren really moving around a lot. It's under braking. You can see it again there, can't you? But it's more of a lateral movement than a twisting movement.
There's Montoya putting a lap on Montero. Drive-through penalty for car number 18. That is Montero, the Jordan driver you're looking at on your screens now. He's finished every Grand Prix this year, Martin. It's his first season in Formula One, but I added it up. And over the course of the 6 races so far, he's a total of 15 laps behind the winner. So he's finished every race, but that's how many in total he's been, which is over 2.5 laps per race behind the winner. So it's a different race altogether at the front from what goes on at the back. Here's the race leader at the moment, Fernando Alonso. He hasn't had the speed to really capitalise on the position he finds himself in. 10 seconds behind Raikkonen before the Finn made his pit stop. And I don't know how many more laps Alonso's going to be able to stay out. I doubt very much he'll have the speed to reduce that 10-second gap.
We just set the new fastest lap of the race, still a long way from the lap record on a 1:30.7. So Alonso clearly has been carrying some speed in his pocket. Louise has found Ralf Schumacher.
Ralf, what happened there? Did you just run wide?
Well, I was following Sato and was relatively close in that moment, lost front arrow and just understeered straight, then hit the curb, then just got launched off. That was the problem.
We've seen a few people running wide. Tell us, how are the Michelins holding out, particularly the fronts?
Well, I had understeered the whole weekend. Start of the race was quite okay, then it developed a bit. So, you know, we had a few problems this weekend really to understand the tyre, especially on my car. That was the reason why my qualifying performance was so weak.
Problem at the start as well. Talk us through that.
Yeah, well, I had a reasonably good start, I thought, but you know, went carefully into turn 1, and I just saw Alonso in front of me because I was so close, and all of a sudden he came to almost a stop, but I didn't see what's going on in front of him because I was so close, really. So it wasn't really a shame. I couldn't do anything about it.
Thanks, Ralph.
Ralph Schumacher there. That's the first retirement in 2005 for the Toyota team, so a pretty good record for them. We're riding on board with Montoya, who's passed a lot of back markers this afternoon. He's been dropped by Michael Schumacher a couple of laps ago. He was fighting with him for that 7th place. Now, what's going to be interesting is Montoya dives into the pits. Massa has made his stop. He was in 6th place. Michael Schumacher has stayed out. Montoya has now come in. Those two were very close up behind Massa. So if Michael Schumacher can stay out another lap or two longer, I think he will nick 6th place. And off the racetrack is the Renault of Fernando Alonso. So both of the front two cars have had offs. I don't know whether that was an unforced error like Raikkonen's, but it's obviously difficult to keep these things on the road here this afternoon. Montoya exits the pits. Where is Massa? Massa just crosses the start-finish line now. This is for basically 7th place in the race. Massa keeps it. Montoya is behind him. Michael Schumacher still in front of them, yet to make another stop. It's all going off in the midfield here.
Alonso went off down at the hairpin, suspect. He locked a brake on the way in, and that can be very costly. We need to see that. Hopefully, here we go. It is down at the far end of the racetrack. How wide does he go? Does he just creep around the outside? No, that's going to cost him a lot of time. So he started to pump in some, cost him 7 seconds. Just over 7 seconds is the penalty there. So that releases Raikkonen comfortably and suddenly puts Heidfeld into play, although Heidfeld was beginning to fade anyway. So in the end, it may not make any difference. But Alonso then just out-braking himself, basically.
Well, it's making a bit of a difference. Alonso's got to pick the pace up again because Heidfeld now is just 14.4 seconds behind him. Those Renault mechanics getting ready for a pit stop at some point in the near future. And if it's the margin from Alonso to Heidfeld stays 14 seconds, that means Heidfeld will jump him at the pit stops. Here comes Michael Schumacher then. His mission here to get out in front of Felipe Massa and Juan Montoya. If he can do it, it'll give him 6th place in the race. And he was 9 seconds behind Coulthard, who's yet to make another stop. So Schumacher could be on for 5th here. He can get out in front of Massa and Montoya. Should be able to do it, I think. Quite comfortably from the looks of things. Yep, there's Massa, the top of your screens. There's Montoya. Easy peasy for Michael Schumacher. That's 6th for him, with Coulthard still to stop. Button comes out of the pits from 8th.
Well, the Michelin rears are looking more daggly on the pit stops than you have to. I mean, Michael's front tyres look brand new. We didn't really get a shot of his rear tyres, but he certainly is not going to have the doom and gloom of tyre degradation that I thought he was going to have when we looked at them at half distance. Still, you can just about see all of the grooves as Alonso pits. Alonso pits from the lead.
And it's not going to be enough of a margin over Heidfeld. That mistake going straight on at the hairpin could well cost Fernando Alonso 2nd place and another 2 points to Kimi Raikkonen in the World Championship. This is going to be very close.
Don't forget Heidfeld's got to stop again yet. Heidfeld's on a 3-stopper, so yeah, definitely the Michelins are now wearing, in the 2nd phase of the race, the Michelins are wearing more heavily as Barrichello sweeps through.
Yeah, you're right. Heidfeld has got to stop again, so he might well get away with it then, Alonso. 12 to go here at the Nürburgring. Just 10 laps to go here in the European Grand Prix at the Nürburgring. Kimi Raikkonen is leading by just 1.8 seconds from Nick Heidfeld, but the German driver who started this race on pole position has to make another stop. There's Fernando Alonso. We saw him go off at the hairpin a few laps ago, and I guess that's a replay of that incident. I'm not an almost carbon copy of the same thing. I'm pretty sure it must be. Look at all the stones being scattered onto the racetrack. Yeah, I think it probably is a replay of that. It's a bit misleading because it was quite a while ago. Alonso 3rd, Barrichello 4th. He's made his 3rd stop of the afternoon. David Coulthard doing a great job in 5th place for Red Bull Racing, 12 seconds behind Barrichello, but unfortunately for him, just a second in front of Fisichella, who's going quicker at the moment than the Scotsman. And but he has another stop to make this afternoon. Michael Schumacher is 7th, and the speed has not really been there this afternoon that was promised from that team. But the good news for Schumacher is that he did manage to jump Felipe Massa in the second round of pit stops. So Massa down to 8th. Montoya in the same McLaren Mercedes-Benz that's being used to lead this Grand Prix by Kimi Raikkonen, out of the points in the hands of Juan Montoya. He needs to rectify that in the next 10 laps, as into the pits, I believe, is the Williams of Nick Heidfeld. 3rd and final stop this afternoon. Most people 2-stopping, but Heidfeld and Barrichello deciding on a 3-stop strategy. This will drop Heidfeld down, and he'll hopefully come out just in front of Rubens Barrichello in 4th place. In 3rd place to keep his podium.
So there goes Alonso to reclaim 2nd place then, and comfortably ahead. It got within a second 0.8 of Kimi Raikkonen just before he came in for this stop. Raikkonen's lap times are all over the place. They're 32s, they're up to 34s. Raikkonen really struggling for any kind of stability.
There's Barrichello. So Heidfeld does keep his podium position at the moment with 9 laps to go. Barrichello, previously a winner here, of course. He's qualified in 7th place on a different strategy from Michael Schumacher, and he is 3 places ahead of him as he was on the grid. Ted Kravitz, what can you tell us?
Well, Giancarlo Fisichella has stopped, and I tell you, I've just been into Renault. They can sniff a victory here. They see that Raikkonen is slow. They think that he has a brake problem. They have also seen that his barge board is broken, so he'll be down on downforce. But I reckon they are confident. They think that Alonso can catch him. He needs to do it a second a lap to have any hope of winning this thing.
Well, he's 6/10 up already on this lap alone. Raikkonen 2 seconds, well, a second off in the middle sector as well. So something going on here with Kimi Raikkonen.
Yeah, what you're looking at is the second pair of the Renault leading McLaren, Fisichella and Montoya. But Raikkonen then, what is he? He's a net 8.6, I think, ahead now, and losing about a second a lap to Alonso. So Alonso had quite a poor pace in the middle part, and that's Liuzzi. Does he hang on to it? Yes, he does, just. Liuzzi down in P11 now. He's sort of fading as the Grand Prix unfolds. He's back in the 34s. Whether that's a mental or physical situation, or the car fading. Another driver not making it into Felipe Massa, not making it into the forward chicane. Drivers are really challenged this afternoon, aren't they, as their tyres begin to fade, and I think some of them are losing brakes too, as you say.
Yeah, that should have given Montoya an extra position then, I would imagine. Massa's dropped down. Yes, he has, to 9th place. Montoya did pass him. We didn't see it there on the racetrack, but here is your race leader. He is in trouble. He dropped 1.2 seconds on that last lap to Fernando Alonso. The gap is 7.4, and we've got 8 laps to go here at the Nürburgring, and it's going to be, I think, another grandstand finish between the 2 contenders for the 2005 World Championship. Raikkonen has got to hang on. Let's see what it's like to drive this car.
Look at his right front tyre. It's just, and in fact, I just think that's worn rubber just flicking around the inside. But Raikkonen, really, we've seen him lock that up heavily on several occasions, and he's really beginning. You can adjust the brake balance inside the car. You can move it rearwards to look at the vibration on that right front. The whole car is shaking along with the camera. You can protect that right front under braking, or the front by moving the bias towards the rear, but the damage is already done for Kimi Raikkonen. He's over a second slower on this lap alone so far.
So why is he in this position? Well, we saw him go off the racetrack once, an unforced error. We also saw him have a lock-up, a left front and a right front. Look at this, like a 50-pence piece. We've mentioned it often enough as a concept. Now we're looking at a reality. That is a 50p piece on the right front of the McLaren. The vibrations must be knocking his fillings out, if he's got any, in those perfect finished teeth of his. But this is going to be an amazing conclusion to this European Grand Prix, because Alonso sniffs victory. Another 1.2 seconds he took out of him on that last lap. The gap down to 6 seconds with just 7 laps to go here.
I think there could even be some delamination starting on that right front, where he's really heavily flat spotted it, or certainly a very heavy blister. Sam, what are you seeing down there? Sam Michael joins us on the pit. Sam has gone. He's gone rushing back to, not surprisingly, Heidfeld's in 3rd place. Sorry, we're expecting to go down to Sam the Michael again there, but Sam is now listening to us. Sam, what are you seeing going on down there?
Oh, well, obviously, Nick's got a good position in 3rd, but he's got to hold Rubens off. Rubens is closing at 2 or 3, maybe half a second per lap on some laps. but he should be able to hold him off for third place, which is a fantastic job for Nick this afternoon.
Obviously, everybody at home watching their television, Sam, they're not technical people like me. I'm not technical either. Explain to us why it's so difficult for these drivers to get these tyres through to the finish, what the struggle that they're having.
Well, it's because you've got to run them for the whole race now, and you're pushing on the compounds as hard as you can to run softer. It obviously makes it very difficult with different levels of fuel load. So that's what you're seeing happening right now with Kimi, because he's flat spotted his tyres heavily. And obviously, Fernando's tyres are coming back after he went through a difficult stage in the race.
Well, we're all set for a grandstand finish. Thank you very much. Technical director of the Williams BMW team, Sam Michael. His driver started pole here today, is currently in third place, but all of the attention is on this man because he's leading a Mansell-esque charge, trying to get the race victory here in Europe. He's fighting his way through. Another 1.3 seconds he takes out of the stricken Kimi Raikkonen. There is Kimi Raikkonen. There is Fernando Alonso. He's got two back markers between him. Just 4.9 seconds the gap with 6 laps to go. For sure he's going to catch him, and then he's going to have to try and get past him.
Yep, 4.9 the gap then, and of course if Alonso gets anywhere near him, Raikkonen cannot go deep into a braking zone. Surely down into turn 1 he will not have a defence if Alonso can get that near to him. But there, look at that right front bouncing away, and it gives a tremendous vibration through the steering wheel. Everything's so rigidly mounted, but surely, let's see, the first sector, Alonso up 0.3 already behind him, so the gap will be down to 4.6 now, and the laps are closing fast though. You'd be there, look, Alonso just nipping underneath. I think it's Jenson Button to put a lap on him. He's having to take all the risks through the back markers, but he's got to think of the championship, but he really can smell a victory now.
He certainly can. This is absolutely fantastic stuff. The 120,000 people, the official crowd figure, with 112,000, I beg your pardon, who've just been handed for here today at the Nürburgring. They've come from far and wide. They've been in their camper vans. They've drunk their own weight in premium lager. They're seeing a tremendous Grand Prix here this afternoon, certainly a tremendous conclusion. There's Schumacher in the Ferrari. Michael Schumacher in 6th place, but typical Schumacher gets away with it. Fisichella too far behind to capitalise. He was 6 seconds behind Michael Schumacher. Was Giancarlo Fisichella, but those tyres not looking too bad in comparison to some we've seen here this afternoon. But, well, Schumacher amongst the also-rans. There's Massa touring around slowly. What a shame for him. He was running in 5th place for a while in this Grand Prix, but it now looks as though he isn't going to make it to the end. The left front tyre looks a bit weird to me.
It does. He could have suspension problem. It looks like it's the right front is high, rather than just a puncture. No, he's delaminated left front tyre. So strange there. I don't understand why he can't turn in. Ted is down in the pits.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Sauber have got that left front ready for Felipe Massa. They're not sure if he's going to make it in, but his race is ruined anyway.
Well, there's your race leader, and there, going behind Felipe Massa, is the man chasing him. You can see Fernando Alonso was 4.4 seconds behind him. That's the BAR. Alonso is behind the BAR. Here he is turning in now to the chicane. At the end of this lap, there will be just 4 laps to go, and the gap was 4.4 seconds. Alonso crosses Raikkonen, I beg your pardon, crosses the line. Alonso comes across the line now. It's taken just 0.4 out. That's not enough. He's going to have 4 really mega laps, as you can see. All sorts of bits and pieces flying off that car of Felipe Massa's.
Yeah, as the tyre delaminated, it hit his front wing, which is why he was struggling to turn into the corners. 3 wheels on his wagon, effectively, and only half the downforce of the front wing. So Massa then, that happens when because they run about 2.5 degrees of camber on the right, on the front. So you do load the inside of the front tyre very heavily indeed, and they'll replace that with a used tyre, which they're allowed to do.
You could see as the old one came off, the expression down to the canvas would be accurate. You could literally see the canvas through the tyre. Tremendous attrition here then, but what can Alonso do? He needs a final big push here to get himself on terms with Raikkonen.
I tell you what, I bet Raikkonen's right front's not a whole bunch away from that condition of Massa's tyre either. After the lockups we've seen, Alonso's dispatched the lap Sato now. He's got clear gap, clear space between him and the race leader. He's 0.2 up in the first sector despite having passed the BAR, but Raikkonen's probably just about got enough laps left, hasn't he?
Well, we've seen defensive driving this season from Fernando Alonso. 3 times a race winner, fantastic stuff. But the last 3 Grand Prix, Spain, The last two Grand Prix, Spain and Monte Carlo, and in Imola as well. In fact, if you go back that far, he had to be extremely defensive. Michael Schumacher attacking him there. And this time, he's the one on the attack, and it's Raikkonen who's on the defence. There's Ron Dennis, the team boss of McLaren Mercedes. His foot just waggling, a little bit of excitement and tension there in the foot of Ron Dennis. And the sole of that shoe, you probably saw some writing on it. It says, "One small step towards victory." Such a McLaren mentality message there. Ted Kravis, what can you tell us? Look at this tyre now, Ted. Look at it, the right front of Raikkonen.
And even more than that, you can hear it. Standing here in the McLaren garage, you can hear it when he comes across down the straight. Everyone else sounds clean. You can probably hear them in the background. They go, ew, ew, and then Raikkonen comes and it's brum, 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 brum. It is as bad as that.
Sound effects by Ted Kravitz. Copyright ITV 2005. Well, I guess Alonso can't quite hear it yet, but he will soon at this rate. He's now just over 3 seconds behind the race leader. There's third place man Heidfeld. Barrichello still fourth. Coulthard's fifth. On for some more World Championship points here this afternoon for Red Bull Racing. Michael Schumacher a long way behind him in 6th place. He seems to have settled for that. Fisichella 7th. Montoya creeps into the points, having got past Massa. He's in 8th place, but are we going to get a change of lead in the closing stages of this Grand Prix?
It's the main fight going on. You have to be impressed with the reliability of that McLaren, because Raikkonen has thrashed that within an inch of its life all afternoon, hasn't he? He's really abused that car, and it's staying underneath him. But 4 laps to go, and that right front tyre. Imagine that the downforce at 185 miles an hour coming into the heavy braking zone and the NGK chicane just put so much load into those tyres. And if the carcass and casing, look at that, just hanging on in there still, isn't it?
How can he possibly drive this car with the tyre in that condition? Even if you're on the roads and a policeman saw that, he'd pull you over, and quite rightly too. This is incredible. The man is driving at an average speed of 128 miles an hour around a racetrack with a tyre that has no place on a racetrack.
The lead down to 2.7 seconds now, and they're coming up to lap Montoya in the sister car, who's in P8. He is in a point-scoring position now, and now we get a good shot. Look at that, it's just moving around almost on the rim, the tyre there. So that's the big flat spot we saw him put on it when he was trying to lap Jacques Villeneuve, and it's somehow hanging on.
It can't last. It cannot last. Surely it cannot last. If he was to pit now, which would be the non-adventurous thing to do, I suppose, he would probably be able to come out just behind Heidfeld. He'd still be on the podium, but it'd be... I mean, is this unsafe?
No, you just got to keep going. If you hit the wall, you hit the wall. There's no chance to stop now. I'm just trying to look at the sectors, and he lost 4/10 in the first sector. He's a second down again on Alonso. Alonso's taken a second out of his lead, and now look how much closer he is. And Alonso with the full braking ability of that Renault. We are going to see a showdown in the final few laps.
For the second time this week at a major sports event, I'm shaking. I was in the stadium in Istanbul, I was shaking for the whole of the second half, and I'm shaking again now, because this is the most fantastic finish to a Formula One race. Raikkonen is under real pressure. There it goes, the tyre lets go. He just misses the VAR, and I said he should have pitted. I told you he would have got a podium if he'd pitted, instead of which he's going to get absolutely nothing. Ron Dennis can't believe it. The racer in Raikkonen wanted the victory. He wanted to stay out there. The common sense man said bring him in. They didn't do it. Alonso's going to take another 10 points out of him in the World Championship, and there's a smile underneath that Spanish crash helmet, because Alonso is going to win the European Grand Prix, having not had a sniff of it for the whole race.
And when it went big, didn't it? Took the suspension with it, but they need to pull these points back on Alonso. They had to take that, the racer's gamble. They had to do it, and that's very reminiscent of when Mika Häkkinen had a failure, similar failure. Just about took Jenson Button out of the race, but missed him. Button moves up to P10, Coulthard up to P4 then, and well, I don't know. Analysis will say yes, you should have changed it.
Of course you should have changed it. It would have been 6 points versus no points. Maybe that's just, I'm not a racer and you are, but last lap you don't come in for a pits, but that looked dangerous to me, and well, there we go, it's off.
Yeah, the tether's doing a good job to keep it from bouncing across Raikkonen's head, so Alonso leads comfortably then from Heidfeld. Barrichello still trying to put Heidfeld under pressure. A lot of debris on the racetrack.
And through to complete a very unlikely victory comes Fernando Alonso. He hunted down Raikkonen. He has his 4th Grand Prix victory of this extraordinary 2005 World Championship. He loves it. He absolutely loves it. The 5th win of his brief career, only 57 Grand Prix, and yet he's been in the winner's circle for almost 10% of them. Nick Heidfeld, he lucks into a 2nd. It would have been a 3rd. Barrichello gets a podium for Ferrari. First time for him this season that he's been on the podium. They had one with Michael Schumacher, remember, back at Imola, but the first time for him. And Heidfeld, well, a tremendous result for him. And what about David Coulthard? What a drive by him. Stupendous performance. Bear in mind as well, he had a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That would have added about, I don't know, 12, 15 seconds to his overall race time. Not quite enough to beat Barrichello, but he'd have been really knocking on the door of a podium without that speeding fine.
Yeah, it'd be at least that, I would think. And that puts him up to 4th in the all-time point scorers list in the history of F1. So P4 today for Coulthard. And say 4th in the list, but Alonso then, he put just enough pressure on Raikkonen, didn't he? They both ended up going off the road. You have to say Raikkonen did thrash his car hard today, and he paid the price, didn't he?
He did. He flew off the road at the Ford curve. He had a couple of big lockups into turn 1, and well, the mood on the McLaren wall, you can just imagine, can't you? Because as he tours around on his slowdown lap, Alonso is saying 4, yes, he's saying it to you at home as well. I've won 4 times this year, and that is the most fun I've had for a long time. Back at the Nürburgring, here in northern Germany, we have had a sensational finish to a really exciting Grand Prix here. Kimi Raikkonen's tyre exploded at the beginning of the final lap, handing victory to Fernando Alonso, and a crucial 10 points further ahead of him in the World Championship. We'll debate long and hard about whether or not McLaren should have brought Raikkonen in. Even though it would cost him the victory, he still probably would have got a podium here this afternoon and 6 points at least, but they didn't do it. He obviously didn't want to do it, Raikkonen himself, but it cost him very, very dearly indeed.
Yes, they have to prove the tyre was dangerous, which wouldn't have been difficult. Actually, I think you're absolutely right. Of course, he should have come in. The tyre didn't actually explode. The vibration and the out of balance of the tyre became so strong, it literally ripped the suspension off the car. The tyre was just, I would imagine, still inflated actually, but it was the cause of the accident, and they obviously decided to wing it, to chance it on the final lap, and well, they took some pain for it, didn't they?
They certainly did. Another dramatic race in what's turning out to be the best World Championship for many, many years. There's Nick Heidfeld. He was our pole sitter here today. Slow away from the start, but on his 3-stop strategy, he kept going. He was on for a podium, and then when Raikkonen's suspension broke, he nicked 2nd place for the 2nd race in a row then, Heidfeld. Monaco P2, and now the European Grand Prix P2. Flavio Briatore can't believe it. And neither could Fernando Alonso. You know what, Martin? He only led 1 lap of this Grand Prix. Well, no, he didn't. He led in the middle part as well, but crucially, he led the most important lap, which is the last one.
Yeah, as ever, Michael Schumacher crept up to 5th. Fisichella started from the pit lane and finished 6th. He had good pace through that Grand Prix, so a good recovery drive there from Fisichella. Montoya, with a difficult afternoon, got caught up. Amazing that his McLaren got to the end, isn't it, after it was run into by Mark Webber's Williams down into turn 1. So we still, we had 18 finishers, plus Raikkonen not getting round the last lap.
Flavio Briatore putting some manners on Herbie Blasch. He used to run the Brabham Formula 1 team. You drove for them, I worked for them. Good old Herbie, he's seen some highs in Formula 1 and some lows as well. Flavio simply cannot believe it. I don't think anybody can. Well, it'll be very interesting to hear what McLaren have to say about that, whether they even considered bringing him in. Michael Schumacher smiling. 5th place again amongst the also-rans for the great man. His teammate on the podium on a different strategy from him that you have to say worked well for him here today. Schumacher stopped twice, went long on the fuel at the start. Barrichello went light in qualifying, got himself up the grid, and Schumacher lost out really heavily in that first corner incident, didn't he? It dropped him right back to 17th place. The tyres there on the back of the Renault as they come out onto the podium.
I think it's significant also that the Bridgestones did have better wear rate today, no doubt about it. Most of those Michelins were really struggling to get to the end of the race, so hopefully Bridgestone getting on it.
So, who's your driver today? I think David Coulthard's got to be in with a good shout, considering the equipment he's got, as Fernando Alonso receives his winner's trophy with a great big smile on his face.
Yeah, I was going to say Coulthard. For me, he had a faultless drive. Let's hope it wasn't his fault in the pit lane. Otherwise, I think he could have been standing up there in second or third without any problem at all. He ended up just 15 seconds behind Heidfeld. For me, Coulthard, but Flavio then, they know that that's really taken the pressure off them, don't they, for the World Championship. The pressure is still there, but Raikkonen was closing so hard and fast on Alonso, and that moment, that decision could be very pivotal in this year's World Championship. Nick Heidfeld, 2 second places in 2 consecutive Sundays. Well deserved.
He's absolutely well deserved for the quiet man of Formula One. And here's a man who's used to being up on the podium. That's good news. That'll give Ferrari something to smile about, won't it? Boris Becker there, up on the podium as well. Presented that trophy to Flavio Briatore. And so now the champagne that Alonso was expecting to be spraying, but I bet he didn't expect to be on the top step. He has his 4th win of the year, and he now leads Kimi Raikkonen in the World Championship by 32 points. Kimi, well, should he have pitted? I think he should. I'm sure many of you at home thought so as well. But the racer in him simply wouldn't allow it.
A phenomenal Grand Prix. Kimi Raikkonen, the odd man out from that podium, so near and yet so far. Catch me if you can, says this man, Alonso. Heidfeld confirming Monaco was no fluke. A big boost for Rubens Barrichello as well. Take a deep breath. We'll be right back. We're loving it. It's been a cracking season so far. Another phenomenal race here. Let's just confirm the result for you. Fernando Alonso, championship leader, stealing through at the end there. Heidfeld 2nd for Williams. Barrichello 3rd in the Ferrari. Coulthard, driver of the day for many, 4th for Red Bull. Michael Schumacher in 5. Fisichella 6 for Renault. Montoya 7 for McLaren, and just the 1 point truly for Toyota. The championship 59 plays 27. Alonso v Raikkonen, Trulli a couple ahead of Heidfeld, Webber on 18, Fisichella and Ralf Schumacher both on 17, and Michael Schumacher and Montoya tied up on 16. Now then, Mark, let's follow the race through the eyes of Kimi Raikkonen. It all looked good for him, didn't it, Kimi? And then the tyres went, the barge board went, and it ended horribly.
I think the bottom line is that maybe Kimi was a little bit too aggressive on his car. And we see this situation here. Kimi comes in, locks up under braking. At this time, you just put so much stress and load for that front right tyre. And look at the shape of it. It is totally out of shape, out of balance. The bottom line on this is starting to put an enormous amount of stress through the suspension.
How hard is that to drive a car like that?
It's incredibly difficult because each time you touch the brake pedal, you don't get the balance on the car. The end result, the suspension gives way, puts him off, and quite luckily he didn't collect anybody else in that accident.
The racer in you said keep going. 1 or 2 pragmatic people might have pitted and settled for points.
I'm afraid to say that I'd be exactly the same. I would have kept going in that situation. With only 2 laps to go, still feeling like you could have made it, you've got to go try it.
Desperately sad then for Kimi Raikkonen. Denied that hat-trick of victories at the start. Mark Webber, we wondered how he was going to start. He didn't get away from the line that well, and he didn't get beyond the first corner either. That notorious first corner we warned everybody about.
Yeah, well, turn 1 did come into play immediately, and the problem we got here, Mark Webber goes into the turn. Pablo Montoya also decides to take the same piece of road. I think Mark a little bit too easy on the braking area for him. He should have just thought about it slightly more, and I think Juan Pablo had no option but to turn in on the corner. You see from the in-car camera shot here, it's just a clean getaway for everybody. The biggest impression for me on this start was David Coulthard. He just missed out of all the melee at the first turn, crept in, and by the first lap he was in 4th place.
Great race. A shame about that drive-through penalty. Fair play to Mark Webber. He didn't blame anybody for that. And fair play too to Fernando Alonso. They kept going at Renault. Ted Kravitz told us they fancied they were going to win the race. We said, are you sure? They did. And Fernando kept on running.
Yeah, well, we also said beginning of the programme, he's got to keep pressure on. Must keep the pressure on. Alonso had his fair share of problems. He ran wide as he was trying to push and get that lap time down and apply more and more pressure to Raikkonen. Again, he's locking up that right front wheel. As we've seen as the race goes on, these tyres are starting to wear considerably, and the drivers are struggling to keep them on the road.
I'm not sure if that's the point of the regulations, but it has given us some very exciting finishes, hasn't it, Mark? Thank you very much indeed. What a great European Grand Prix. We all have huge sympathy for Kimi Raikkonen. In the end, though, Fernando Alonso got his man. Cheerio.